Our story begins on a full moon night as a hooded archer glows with green energy, showing off his impressive skills. With this very skill he used to make strategy streamers nervous, but his teammates do not seem very eager to get involved. Beneath the hood, a young man with a confident smile reveals himself, being the former #1 player of an RPG game. Now, in his bedroom, the guy puts on a pair of virtual reality glasses to conquer the famous game Ferris. The lights on the glasses brighten and the world around him distorts, signaling his entry into the digital universe. Inside the game, his pixelated avatar introduces himself as the streamer who is #1 in attacks, and his name is Doji. Back to his normal appearance, now inside the game, Doji declares that his name will actually be Wet Towel. He stands before a giant blue spiritual entity, which repeats his chosen name, Wet Towel. The creature praises the choice, thinking it is a magnificent name worthy of a great warrior like him. Next, the entity explains that to protect the world, they will do a very simple tutorial to get started. While she speaks, a skip button appears in the air, and Doji is already getting ready to press it without hesitation. The entity disappears in a cloud of smoke, leaving the protagonist alone in the virtual space after he skips the dialogue. Doji reflects on the excessive amount of tutorials in today's games, thinking that players could learn everything on their own. A notification pops up, informing him that he earned an achievement for being the fastest to skip the tutorial. Being transported through a tunnel of light, the young man comments that the game developers are quite eccentric. Soon after, the protagonist arrives at a medieval-looking town with a blue sky and a shining sun. He barely has time to look around as a guard approaches from behind, calling for his attention. The man introduced himself as Damien Fitch, the village instructor, but Doji is already pressing the skip button again. Another achievement notification pops up, congratulating him on skipping the dialogue faster than last time. Damien Fitch seems to find Doji's communication impressive and suggests that testing the controls might be a good idea. Using his new basic gear, Doji is satisfied with the quality of the items, considering they are for beginners. However, the instructor stares at him with a strange expression, leaving the protagonist a bit confused. Not understanding, Doji asks what is wrong with the face the instructor is making at him. Damien starts to say he would like to ask a small favor, but the guy simply presses the skip button one more time. The system rewards him with another achievement for skipping the conversation before the button was even displayed on the screen. With an air of superiority, Doji comments that he does not even read internet posts if they do not have a 3-line summary. Suddenly, Damien Fitch grabs him with a pained expression and suffers a heavy strike right in front of him. A system window appears in the air, informing everyone that combat mode has been initiated. Doji holds the instructor's body as he passes out in his arms, wondering if he made a mistake by skipping the conversation. Just ahead, a group of green monsters approaches, and the guy gets curious about the story behind them. Even surrounded, he defends himself from the monsters' attacks with his sword, but does not think the situation is anything special. Fighting, he figures the instructor probably got hurt, so he would have to defeat the monsters with the basic equipment. With an agile leap, Doji charges at the horde of green creatures, attacking with his sword in a quick motion. After landing, he crouches and confidently declares that the fight is already over, showing his efficiency in combat. The protagonist then puts his sword back in its sheath, keeping a serious expression focused on what comes next. At that moment, a scary giant monster appears roaring, but Doji's hand is already on the button to skip the scene. He wonders if the story will follow the cliché of trying to take him down after the tutorial, and the system confirms it will. A new achievement appears, with a message from the developers asking him to at least look at the game they created. Without warning, a dark creature with red eyes leaps toward him, ready for a devastating strike. Doji realizes the level difference is huge and understands he needs to be defeated here so the story can move forward. With a look of pure anger, Doji yells that he is completely fed up with so many tutorials in games. He declares that this is why he always skips everything while facing the dark creature with his sword in hand. Dodging a swift strike from the monster, the protagonist begins to question the game developers' intentions. He cannot understand why they are so interested in defeating players right at the beginning of the journey. Blocking a powerful attack with his weapon, Doji admits that this whole situation is making him really annoyed. Faced with his resistance, the red-eyed monster lets out a furious roar, filling the screen with its fury. Intimidated, the guy gets into a combat stance, facing the creature and preparing for the fight. With impressive agility, he starts landing a series of quick strikes against the monster's body. The creature feels the impact of each attack, crying out in pain as blue sparks fly from its injuries. Already getting a bit tired of the battle, Doji wonders how much longer it will take for the monster to finally be defeated. Suddenly, his eyes widen in surprise as he realizes he accidentally pressed a button. He sees that his own sword pressed the skip button that appeared on the monster's body and wonders if he skipped the fight. A new achievement notification pops up, giving him the title of Skip Master for doing it without even realizing it. Next, the system informs him that he got all the achievements related to skipping and changed to a secret class. As a reward for completing all these achievements, the game offers him a random card as a special prize. Doji is shocked by the existence of a class called Skip Warrior and begs the system to cancel the change. But a red warning window informs him that cancellation is not possible because secret classes are locked to the account. Desperate, he yells at the developers, saying it was a mistake and that he just wanted to continue with the story. As he is teleported to the beginner village, he complains out loud that he wanted to be a super powerful archer. The guy also complains about the class name, thinking Skip Warrior is not cool at all. An explanation screen shows why he dislikes secret classes, since there are no guides or info on how to level up. Plus, getting items for these classes is very hard, since very few players use them in the game. In Korea, most players prefer the 4 main professions like warrior, archer, mage, and healer. Arriving at the beginner village, Doogie finds himself in a crowd of other players with their own classes. He sits alone on a bench, looking discouraged, while the other players move around him. Sighing, the protagonist thinks about how much he really hates close combat characters like warriors. Being a skip warrior, he imagines he will now be forced to fight hand to hand like a regular warrior. Curious and worried, he decides to open his class window to see exactly what a skip warrior does. The description says he can skip situations others cannot, but it does not work in combat or major decisions. Checking his skills, he finds a list that contains only a single option called skip. A bad feeling takes over Doogie, and he starts to worry if this means he cannot learn anything else. With a heavy heart, the young man touches the screen to read the detailed description of his one and only skill. The description confirms his worst fears, stating that he cannot learn any skills from other professions. The news leaves him in a state of shock, frozen against a dark background as he holds the info screen. In the village, his expression is one of pure despair, as if his soul had left his body while he was still standing. 2 other players watch him from afar, commenting that he looks like he got scammed or fired from a job. Unable to believe what happened, Doogie covers his face with his hands, feeling the weight of his new reality. He then reveals his face, looking tired, and says this has become the biggest problem of his streamer life. Right at that moment, an excited voice yells from the crowd, saying she finally found him among everyone. A girl with glasses appears in front of him and makes a photo gesture, shouting his in-game name, Wet Towel. Looking annoyed, Doogie closes his eyes, visibly upset by the persistent fan's presence. His hand grips the handle of his sword tightly, showing his patience is running out. He glares at the girl and asks if she is a stream sniper, telling her to go away since he does not live right now. The narration explains that stream snipers are players who use the broadcast to find streamers and ruin their game. In a flashback, other players comment on how they messed up Wet Towel's stream, but he won anyway. While it can be funny sometimes, most of the time this practice just makes streamers really angry. Facing his fan, the protagonist wonders how that girl managed to find him so fast inside the game. Besides being number 1 in strategy, he is also ranked first in getting sniped, which makes him decide to take it easy today. The girl, however, stays there with a confident and somewhat creepy smile on her face. She thinks it is amazing to meet him in person, and is impressed by his quick adaptation to the game. With his hand on his face, Doogie says he is not feeling very well today, trying to use that as an excuse to dismiss her. As he walks away, he asks the girl not to share his location with anyone and just leave. But the young woman does not even think about giving up, because to her, meeting her idol is like hitting the jackpot in the game. The protagonist stops for a moment, feeling that there is something very wrong going on with this whole situation. With an intense look, she reminds him of his fame as the shooter who takes down close-range enemies with a single strike. Other players watch the scene and comment that the girl looks like a fool trying to get the streamer's attention. Hearing the mean comments from the others, the young woman feels completely insulted by their attitude. Full of shame and anger, she yells the name Wet Towel and promises that he will see what she is capable of. In the spot where she was standing, a log-out portal opens, and the players comment it was obvious she would give up. Turning around, Doogie looks at the empty spot and wonders why this kind of thing always happens to him. He then starts to think about the phrase the girl shouted about a shooter taking down a close combat champion. At that moment, Doogie remembers several comments from his subscribers who talked about how boring he was or how he read nothing. The memories show that his fans created a completely distorted image of him, and the guy cannot take this situation anymore. So, he decides to embrace the idea of being a close combat character, thinking it might even be an advantage. With new determination, Doogie decides to start his live stream to show everyone his new journey. With a determined look, he declares to his audience that he is ready for whatever comes, whether to win or lose. He admits he knows nothing about his new character, so he decides to start with the basics and check his skills. With renewed energy, he tries to activate his only skill, shouting the word skip with all his might. The protagonist runs through the village with his skill window open, but absolutely nothing different happens. Stopping in the middle of the street, the guy is completely confused, not understanding why the skill is not working. A red error notification pops up on the screen, stating that the skill cannot be used in the current situation. With his face distorted by anger, Doogie lets out a yell, simply unable to believe what is happening. He tries every possible way to activate the skill, but the same error message keeps blocking his actions. Finally, a new system window appears, informing him that the skill usage instructions are about to start. But, out of pure instinct, Doogie yells to skip the instruction tutorial before it even starts showing up. The system then confirms that the tutorial was forcefully skipped using a skill, making everything even more confusing. With a face full of question marks, the protagonist is left speechless, trying to process what just happened. With his eyes wide open, he wonders if there happened to be another tutorial he just skipped by accident. To make matters worse, a new message warns that, for smoother progress, the skill explanations have been disabled. Completely defeated, Doji yells that he does not want this anymore and calls the game developers crazy people. Once again, the system shows a message and Doji, furious, yells it to simply skip everything again. In the blink of an eye, his own skip skill is activated again, even against his will. The sword in his hand starts to glow with an intense blue light, responding to the system's forced command. With absurd speed, Doji's body shoots forward, leaving a trail of energy in the air. He dashes in continuous motion as if executing a high-speed sword technique. The sound of a quick slash echoes through the air, showing the strength and precision of the strike he is delivering. In a blur, the protagonist swings his sword repeatedly, having no control over his own movements. The action is so fast it is almost impossible to follow, showing the power of the time-skipping skill. Finally, the frantic movement stops, and his sword is stuck in the ground in front of him. Doji suddenly stops, leaning on the blade so he will not fall, exhausted from what just happened. Panting, he tries to catch his breath, still not understanding the extent of the power he used by accident. At that moment, a notification confirms that the skipping action was successfully completed. Next, a shower of messages informs him that he acquired and maxed out the quick slash skill in seconds. The system explains that the 5 seconds of skipping equaled 278 hours of intense training. Suddenly, Doji notices his sword feels much lighter and wonders if this is the result of his skill. With a smile on his face, he thinks to himself that this whole situation is completely crazy. The guy then reflects that by saying the word skip, a secret fountain was unlocked in the game. But another message warns that the 8th seal of a demon has also been broken, and he decides to be more careful. To make things worse, a new window informs him that by using skip 3 times, he accumulated 3 charges of something unknown. With a pale face, Doji panics as he wonders if he activated the skill again without noticing. He looks around, and the city street seems normal, with no sign that anything weird happened. However, looking up at the sky, he feels something is not right, like a bad premonition. His eyes widen in shock when he notices a massive disturbance coming from above. Out of nowhere, a gigantic column of water erupts from the ground, shooting up toward the sky with absurd force. The protagonist is thrown high into the air by the water explosion, falling upside down. Spinning in the air, he continues to fall at high speed, totally out of control of the situation. The rising water column turns into a beautiful artificial waterfall, with a rainbow forming at the top. Down below, a group of blue creatures watches the scene, looking at the sky with curiosity and confusion. Suddenly, the weather changes drastically and heavy rain begins to pour on them, leaving them soaked. A pink-haired woman who is on the street looks up, confused by the sudden weather change. Next, she turns around scared as she sees a huge amount of water starting to flood the city streets. The woman cannot figure out where all that water is coming from, since there were no rivers or lakes nearby. Meanwhile, the blue creatures watch the flood thinking it is all part of a fun game event. Doji, now in the middle of the crowd, notices the water level is rising way too fast to be normal. With a guilty look, he finally understands that he was the one who caused all this and was the only one who did not know. The young man even thinks the developers did a good job simulating such a realistic weather change. But the water keeps rising forcefully, and the flood level is already reaching his waist. He looks at the water with concern and feels the presence of something giant, wondering if it is a kraken. Emerging from the middle of the flood, a giant sea monster with several tentacles and horns appears in the city. Doji screams in shock, unable to believe that sea monsters can live in the fresh water of a city fountain. Up close, the kraken's red eyes glow with hatred, showing the creature is furious and ready to strike. With a devastating sound, one of its tentacles comes down with full force, crushing the ground and sending debris everywhere. Facing the monster's massive silhouette, Doji gets into a battle stance, looking tiny next to the creature. The sea monster glares at the protagonist with a look full of anger, focusing all its attention on the little human in front of it. Before the fight begins, a dialogue window for the monster pops up, but Doji yells he is not curious and activates the skip to ignore it. In the middle of the rain, the young man tries to rationalize what he sees, guessing an ancient hero must have sealed this creature there. He simply has no patience for boss stories, preferring to skip all the fluff and go straight to the action. Not wanting to hear anything else, the protagonist charges at the kraken, yelling that he is not the least bit curious about it. Doji gets right up close to one of the monster's huge tentacles, raising his sword to deliver a powerful strike. With a bright flash, his blade hits the target dead on, releasing a large amount of energy on impact. In a single instant, the kraken's body is completely taken apart, and its pieces fly in all directions. After the monster is defeated, the sky clears and the water calms down, leaving Doji standing in a surprisingly peaceful setting. With his back to the calm, he mutters to himself that the more he thinks about the situation, the more annoyed he gets. The scene shifts to a recording where someone questions how a ranged character defeated a close combat one. Next, a video shows Doji's face saying he will take number 1 again and yelling to skip. Back in the game, the guy is now holding an onion and wondering what kind of quest the knights gave him. He looks at the quest with a cringed expression, while a little pink octopus is attached to his waist. Next, he analyzes the reaction to his latest video, noticing there are way more negative reactions than positive ones. Reading the comments, Doji sees his viewers complaining about the lack of content and too many edited skips. Shocked by the terrible reception from the audience, the protagonist panics as he realizes what people think of him. He thought a close combat character would be popular, but reality turned out to be completely different from what he expected. Sitting there looking discouraged, he admits that not even he understands what he is doing, so it is normal that nobody else does either. Trying to comfort himself, he says the logic of a sea monster in fresh water would already be confusing to anyone. He then assumes the weirdness is due to the fact that many players prefer strategies with ranged characters. But right after, Doji fills with determination, deciding he will do the quest really well to gain popularity. With the little octopus still on his waist, he looks around the city, trying to figure out what to do first. He approaches a red-haired woman and tries to ask about the onion quest but seems a bit nervous. The woman starts to greet him, but Doji's instinct is stronger and he activates the skip skill mid-conversation. Annoyed at being interrupted, the woman calls him unlucky and walks away angry, leaving him behind. The young man is left speechless, wondering why everyone in that place seems to act so weird. Suddenly, the little pink octopus on his waist speaks up, explaining that people react that way because he is always in a rush. Doji looks at the little octopus with an unfriendly face, clearly not liking the comment he heard at all. Although the scolding annoys him, the octopus continues with a smile, saying it is good to see its daddy smiling. The guy thinks about grilling the little octopus when an old man in a hood approaches, saying he feels a great aura coming from him. Not understanding a thing, Doji watches the mysterious man walk toward him, wondering what is happening now. With one of the octopus's tentacles in his mouth, he guesses this is probably the start of a new quest. The old man starts talking about the creature on his chest, but Doji, already frustrated, activates the skip once again. As a result, the hooded old man starts moving and talking at an accelerated speed, becoming incomprehensible. Completely out of breath, the man desperately tries to tell him about a secret mission, but can barely speak. The scene ends with a caricature of Doji, representing a viewer who watches everything at top speed and just wants to skip. The hooded old man starts a monologue, explaining in detail all the nutrients and health benefits of onions. Doji listens to it all without being able to do anything, wondering why this time he cannot skip this boring conversation. At that moment, the little pink octopus on his waist screams and points to the sky, noticing that something is changing. To Doji's shock, the sky has already darkened and the sun is setting, but the old man keeps talking endlessly about onions. The protagonist is left completely without a reaction, staring at the horizon with a blank, shocked expression. He cannot believe that even after skipping time, the old man is still there saying the same thing. The man now gives tips on how to store onions, and Doji, in an act of desperation, yells to skip everything again. But time passes once more and it is already night, with the old man now explaining the biology of octopuses to a desperate Doji. In a close-up, the man continues his never-ending lecture, detailing how the eyes and brains of octopuses work. Trembling with anger, the protagonist realizes this has turned into a battle of pride between him and the NPC's dialogue. With all his strength, he shouts the word skip one more time, determined to end that torture. Several dialogue windows start flashing rapidly across the screen, being skipped one after the other at high speed. The sequence of skips is so intense it creates a gale, showing the absurd amount of lines he ignored. From afar, two blue creatures comment that the player got caught by the most talkative NPC in the game, created by the developers. Completely exhausted, Doji keeps yelling to skip, holding his head with his hands from so much stress. Suddenly, the hooded old man grabs him in a tight hug, surprising the young man who was not expecting it. The man says Doji was the first person to listen to his story for 2 full days and 3 nights. With tears in his eyes, he promises to tell the royal family's secret as a reward for his patience. But the protagonist just smirks, thinking he will not be fooled by the old man's talk again. Without a second thought, he refuses to hear another word and yells to skip the rest of the story. The old man laughs and congratulates him for his cooperation as his body begins to dissolve into pixels, disappearing. Relieved, Doji takes a deep breath, finally free of that terrible man who almost drove him crazy with so much talking. Soon after, he finds himself in a completely different place on top of a snow-covered mountain. Not understanding how he got there, he looks around, trying to figure out where he is and what happened. Out of nowhere, a giant dark creature with glowing red eyes appears and attacks, breaking the ice floor. Doji is thrown by the impact and rolls through the snow, shouting that the place is extremely cold. He stands up and remembers the old man mentioned something about snow, realizing he was sent there as part of the quest. Drawing his sword, the guy decides he cannot be defeated there without even knowing what is going on. His first decision is to take care of the monster in his path, so he charges in to attack with determination. The young man lands a strike with his sword, but it breaks upon hitting the white-furred, blue-skinned monster. With his eyes wide, he stands in shock, holding the hilt of the broken sword without understanding why. A system window then explains the item durability mechanics, showing that his sword had 50 points. The narration continues, informing that every time an item is used, its durability drops a little. And when an item's durability reaches 0, it is completely destroyed and can no longer be used. A system message confirms that the beginner's sword's durability reached 0 and the item was destroyed. Doji is confused as he does not remember using the sword that many times until a terrible idea pops into his mind. He remembers when he skipped time to train his strikes and wonders if that also drained the durability. Terrified, he realizes he is unarmed and wonders how he will face the monster right in front of him. The scene shows the protagonist and the snow creature staring at each other in an awkward and slightly weird silence. But the creature wastes no time, letting out a roar and preparing to attack the defenseless Doji with its giant claw. Seeing the attack, Doji complains that his sword, even being a beginner item, already broke after so little use. When the monster's claw is about to hit him, the little pink octopus on his waist calls him daddy in fear. In a split-second decision, the protagonist rips the little octopus off his clothes, holding it firmly. With a sad smile, he apologizes to his companion, saying it was fun, but he has to do it. Without hesitation, Doji uses the little octopus's body as a shield to defend against the snow creature's attack. But the little pink creature reacts unexpectedly, screaming for its mother with eyes shining with anger. The monster strike hits the octopus dead-on, causing a huge impact that kicks up a cloud of snow. Surprisingly, the snow creature steps back with a trembling arm, as if it got hurt in the clash. Doji watches the scene with a serious look, realizing his little companion is stronger than it looked. He then raises the pink octopus in the air like a trophy, saying it successfully blocked the attack. With an annoyed human-like expression, the octopus confronts him, saying it was used as a shield to protect its dad. Meanwhile, the snow monster lets out a roar of pain, and a red liquid begins to run from its eyes. Seeing the situation, Doji decides it is time to leave and grabs his little octopus to run away from there. But as he turns around, he hits the monster with the octopus, and the creature's head unexpectedly shatters. The protagonist is left with a confused face, not understanding what just happened right in front of him. Next, the monster's headless body falls to its knees in the snow, and Doji says he had not even done anything yet. He asks the octopus if it did something, but the creature denies it and asks if Daddy didn't do anything either. Holding his little companion, Doji feels that something is very weird with that whole situation. He then panics upon realizing he might have accidentally defeated another player's monster. And indeed, another player shivering from the cold appears in the snow, holding a small knife and looking very angry. Doji looks at the man with a disinterested expression, letting out hot breath because of the cold. The man approaches, accusing the protagonist of ignoring him and stealing the monster he was hunting. With his hand on his face, the guy seems to think the player is taking things way too seriously. The man then loses his patience and charges furiously, yelling for Doji to prepare to be defeated. Suddenly, he is hit by something invisible, and his face contorts in pain mid-attack. The body of the defeated monster now floats with a blue aura, and Doji asks who he is and what he is doing. The protagonist gets a serious and focused look, completely changing his posture to a more threatening one. Stepping on the ground, a green energy appears under his feet, indicating he is using some kind of magic. He puts on a mask, saying there were too many eyes in the beginner village, and asks who sent that player. With a snap of his fingers, Doji challenges him to a fight and ends his live stream. The other player is completely terrified by the change in attitude, realizing that Doji is very dangerous. Without a second thought, he yells that he gives up on everything and runs away desperately down the snow mountain. Doji wonders if he is really that scary, seemingly secretly proud of the other player's reaction. The little octopus, oblivious to it all, happily comments that it is snowing, trying to cheer up its daddy. The guy looks at the falling snowflakes, and a small smile forms on his face. He stands there for a moment, still in the snow with his companion, looking calmer after all the chaos. However, the peace is short-lived as a massive avalanche starts sliding down the mountain. With the freezing wind, Doji protects his head with the octopus and gets an alert about a sudden temperature drop. He starts shaking and chattering his teeth, complaining about how the game can be so realistic that it makes him feel cold. From afar, the player who ran away comments he would have been taken down if he had not escaped, while the octopus brags about blocking the strike. With a smile, Doji tells the octopus it is perfect for being used as a shield, and that he is holding it so it won't get lost. He then asks the little octopus to block attacks whenever he needs to, and notices its color looks different. The pink octopus complains it is very cold and its body feels weird, calling for its daddy with a weak voice. Seeing his companion looking sick, Doji remembers the status change warning and decides he needs to do something fast. He looks around for any resources, but realizes with a panicked look that he has absolutely nothing. All he finds is a dry branch in the middle of the snow, and frustrated, he wonders what he could do with it. The guy then straps the little octopus to his waist again, adjusting it so it stays safe and warm. Holding the branch, he gets the idea to start a fire, remembering a summary he read on the internet about how to do it. In his mind, a little tutorial pops up with 3 simple steps on how to make fire using only dry twigs. Sitting in the snow, Doji gets ready to try, but since it is getting cold, he decides to use his skill to speed up the process. He starts rubbing the branches together at high speed, using the skip to try and create a spark. Unable to start the fire, he gets annoyed and tries again harder, determined not to give up. The guy yells that he will see who wins and uses his skip one more time, finally managing to create a small ember. With the force of the skip, time moves forward quickly, and when everything stops, it is already night, and a large bonfire is lit. The branch he used is now covered in snow and ice, but with the tip burning intensely in the dark. The little octopus gets closer to the fire, happy and relieved to finally feel some warmth in that freezing place. However, he soon notices the temperature is rising too fast and the fire is getting too hot. Suddenly, the snow on the mountain starts melting everywhere due to the intense heat spreading around. Somewhere else, a large ice dragon roars in fury, shouting and wondering why the snow is melting. A system notification warns that the ruler of the snow mountain is getting angry at the situation. But Doji, shivering from the cold, replies that he does not care about the owner of the place, as he just wants to get warm. Without worrying about the consequences, he yells to skip one more time, putting more energy into the fire. The fire explodes in a large circle of heat, melting all the snow around and revealing the dirt ground. Up close, the ruler of the snow mountain, a dragon made of ice, stares at the scene with its glowing eyes. The creature looks confused, with a drop of sweat running down its face, not understanding the source of so much heat. In truth, what was happening was Doji rubbing his hands together at superhuman speed to generate heat. The movement of his hands was so fast it became a blur, creating intense friction and generating fire. The octopus says its daddy's hand looked like it had stopped because of how fast it was moving, while fire radiated from him. Upon touching the ground, the dirt beneath his hand starts to glow, showing just how hot it was. The ice dragon looks at the ground in shock, seeing the snow melt and the bare earth being exposed. In a few seconds, the entire area turns into a sea of mud and melted rock like a small volcano. The heat is so intense that the ice dragon's body begins to melt, and it cries out in pain as it falls apart. The glove on Doji's hand disintegrates from the heat, showing that the power he generated went out of control. Looking at the destruction, the guy just complains that it would have been nice if the fire had lit faster. Suddenly, the little octopus looks scared at something behind Doji, calling for its daddy with concern. The octopus feels something is very wrong, while looking at the completely transformed scenery around them. The snow mountain is now a rocky valley with rivers and waterfalls formed by all the melted snow. Doji stands up and looks at the new landscape, with the wind blowing and his little octopus hanging on his shoulder. They both stay silent for a moment, looking at the landscape they accidentally created. Next, a series of notifications informs that he learned and improved fire skills and that the melted snow caused floods in the village. With his hand on his face, Doji complains that he just wanted to light the fire fast, but the game has no middle ground. The little octopus replies that the problem is Daddy, who has no middle ground and always turns everything into a huge mess. The young man tries to comfort himself, saying that at least nobody got hurt and everything will be fine in the end. But, at the same time, the village below the mountain is being completely flooded, with the residents panicking. Ignoring the destruction he caused, Doji says that at least now he understands a bit better how his skill works. He explains to himself that while normal players can skip parts of the game, his skill lets him skip much more. With his power, he can skip even situations that would normally be impossible to ignore for other players. With a mischievous smile, the protagonist realizes that, depending on the situation, he can even stack the effects of the skip. Next, he poses like a streamer, asking people to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. He then turns around and throws the stick he was using for his broadcast as far as he can. The small stick flies through the sky, landing somewhere far from the cliff where they were standing. Suddenly, the ruler of the snow mountain, now in a much smaller form, appears and Doji grabs onto him. With an evil smile, he comments that he skipped time without paying attention and asks the dragon why it got so small. The little ice dragon gets ready to release its breath and Doji taunts it, saying it must be angry. The creature then shoots a blast of ice from its mouth, trying to hit the protagonist who is clinging to its neck. Doji manages to hold onto the dragon's horn to shut its mouth and stop the attack, but realizes it will not work. Being dragged through the air, he thinks about how annoying it is to have almost fallen from such a high place because of the monster. Furious with the situation, the guy starts throwing a series of punches at the little ice dragon's head. He yells for the dragon to feel firsthand what it is like to be attacked and activates his skip skill to speed up the punches. In the blink of an eye, a rain of punches hits the creature, which cannot react to the speed of the attack. A series of notifications informs that he learned and improved a new flame counterattack skill. With the final blow, the dragon is knocked far away, but the momentum ends up throwing Doji into the air, and he starts to fall. From below, the little pink octopus watches desperately as its daddy and the dragon fall from the sky. The protagonist spins in the air, completely dizzy, looking like melted ice cream as he plummets. The ice dragon, recovered from the attack, flies toward Doji, who keeps falling at high speed. With an agile movement, the guy manages to use the creature's horn as support to launch himself in the air. Next, his hand starts to glow with a red energy, and he readies his new move, the flame counterattack. He strikes the dragon's head with the palm of his hand, releasing a series of fire explosions on impact. The powerful attack blows the creature away, and a system window explains the details of the new skill. The octopus on the ground uses its tentacles like binoculars, wondering why it is so noisy up there. It then looks down and is confused to see something weird happening right in front of it. Meanwhile, in the sky, Doji manages to mount the dragon and holds it by the horns, trying to tame it. Next, the tamed creature dives at high speed and crashes into the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. The protagonist stands up, relieved he was almost not defeated, but the octopus says the one who almost got in trouble was it. Ignoring his companion, Doji starts talking to his imaginary audience, explaining how to attack flying enemies. Posing as a host, he asks if that was not easy, as if he were teaching a strategy. The guy then starts laughing in an exaggerated and slightly crazy way, proud of his own actions. Nearby, the ice dragon is lying on the ground, quite weakened and half-melted, coughing with difficulty. Doji approaches and complains that the monster should have been defeated at a better camera angle. He touches the dragon's head, saying he believes he only made it this far because of it. With his fire skill activated, Doji yells for the dragon to be taken down and finish the quest once and for all. Suddenly, the huge flame he generated starts to shrink, as if it were losing strength. The fire goes out completely, revealing that the ice dragon was entirely melted and is now just a puddle of water. A single drop falls into the puddle, marking the end of the creature that was once the powerful ruler of that mountain. In the spot where the monster was defeated, a beautiful blue crystal rose appears, glowing brightly on the ground. Doji picks up the rose, figuring it must be a quest item needed to complete his objective. With a confident smile, he thinks that RPG quests are all predictable and easy to understand. But as he turns around, he looks at the transformed landscape and wonders how he is going to get back to the city. He regrets not going down with the flood water, because now a simple walk will seem boring to his viewers. The guy thinks there must be a more comfortable way to get back, since he was sent there so suddenly. At that moment, a system window with the skip button appears, offering a solution to his problem. Without hesitating, he presses the button hard, convinced that skipping is always the best and fastest option. A message informs that due to his skill, the skip will be even more efficient than the game's standard mode. He reaches out and the image freezes, as if he were hitching a ride with a passing group. Next, he is already with a group of knights, who hand him the crystal rose and take care of the quest items. The knights say goodbye, telling him that something new will begin when he discovers the secret of the kingdom's item. The protagonist is confused, not understanding why the knights just showed up and left so fast. Annoyed, he complains they should have warned him it was a connected quest and that they didn't even give him a ride back. He yells at nothing, demanding that they at least tell him what he needs to do next in the quest. Far away, a woman watches Doji's recording on her cell phone, finding his reactions very funny. She comments that the video editing is so good you cannot tell if he is good at playing or just at creating camera angles. The phone shows a close-up of her hand while she keeps talking about the kraken that Doji defeated. She can barely believe he was the first to defeat both the kraken and the ice dragon. The woman then reflects that this unknown player is the #1 ranged streamer in the game. Next, she says that thanks to the video, she now knows exactly where the protagonist is located. With a mysterious smile, the streamer decides that maybe it is a good idea to go meet him naturally. Back to Doji, he complains about not being able to use the skip skill to get down the mountain, walking along a rugged path. He mutters that the developers should explain the game properly, while a note points out that he was the one who skipped the tutorials. After a long walk, the guy finally reaches a village, relieved to have survived the journey. He finds the town's appearance strange, wondering if there was a war, unaware that the flood was his fault. Hearing a noise, he turns around and sees a crowd of people gathered, curious to see who arrived. In the middle of the group, a beautiful white-haired woman with a staff asks people to step forward one at a time. Several players kneel and offer items and money to the woman, whom they call Okang. With a smile, she accepts the gifts, saying she will borrow them for a while and return them later. Doji watches the scene from afar and recognizes the woman, wondering if that is the famous Sun Okang. He remembers her, a streamer who, just like him, specializes in game strategy videos. Moreover, she is known as a rookie who is growing very fast in the gaming community. She is also famous for her exceptional skills and her looks, being a grandmaster at what she does. With a serious expression, Doji admits to himself that he is also one of the subscribers to her channel. He nods his head in agreement, confirming his respect for the other streamer. With his back to the crowd, Doji complains that while he has to cause disasters to get views, others receive gifts. The little octopus on his shoulder points out that he caused all the destruction himself, but the guy changes the subject, sighing. He decides that feeling jealous only makes him bitter, so he prefers to go on a quest, but is recognized by two blue creatures. Suddenly, Sun Okang runs toward him with a smile, saying it is a coincidence to run into him there. The girl stops in front of him with a look of surprise and a bit of disgust, noticing the guy's appearance. She asks why he looks so dirty and worn out, but soon after tells him to forget it. With an amused smile, she notices he does not have his bow and asks if he is no longer playing as an archer. He replies that he was focused on other achievements, and she takes the opportunity to ask him to promote her channel. With a look of contempt, Doji makes an offensive gesture, showing how annoyed he is by her proposal. He thinks about how shameless she is, first calling him over and then asking for such a big favor. Sun Okang then suggests a collaboration, but he simply tells her to do whatever she wants, without paying much attention. The protagonist turns to walk away, saying he is busy, while the streamer is left behind, surprised by his reaction. With an annoyed look, he decides he will unsubscribe from her channel later, when nobody is watching. Trembling with anger, Sun Okang cannot believe he dared to reject her collaboration offer in front of everyone. The little octopus comments that he is the one who finds the items, not her, while Doji glares at her defensively. With her face red with fury, the girl yells for him to wait and see what will happen, calling him by his nickname, After she teleports away, a glowing blue portal is left in the spot where she stood. Doji wonders why everyone who does something wrong tells him to wait and see, feeling a certain sense of déjà vu. Out of nowhere, Sun Wukong's fans panic when they realize she logged out of the game right in the middle of everything. One of them warns she probably logged out because of Doji and that there is already a post about it in the community. The protagonist notices everyone is glaring at him with anger and wonders what is going on. One of the fans drops to his knees, yelling that she is going to take a break because of Doji's bad behavior. Suddenly, the guy finds himself surrounded by a group of furious players, ready to attack him over the streamer. He is confused, wondering if he missed some important part of the conversation without noticing. Without a decent weapon, the protagonist realizes the situation has become very annoying and gets ready to fight. Two players charge forward, yelling that, because of him, they won't be able to watch their favorite streamer's live broadcasts anymore. Doji quickly grabs one of their faces, saying she probably just wanted to rest a bit. He then uses his fire skill to attack, saying that is no reason to attack a streamer as good as him. With a single strike, he creates a massive fire explosion that hits all the players around him. One player's sword flies through the air engulfed in flames before hitting the ground. The blade sticks into the stones of the street, glowing with the energy of the attack it just took. Doji picks up the sword, noting it is a high-quality weapon made by a blacksmith who needed money. Seeing he is unarmed, the other players decide to attack all at once, yelling for him to bring the streamer back. With the new weapon in hand, the protagonist smiles, saying he now has a way to properly defend himself. He swings the sword with incredible force, releasing a wave of blue energy that sweeps away all his enemies. The players are shocked, not knowing he had such a powerful skill, and one even wonders if he is not the bad guy. At that moment, a group of knights approaches, yelling for all the chaos in the city to stop immediately. Doji gets worried, thinking that if he gets arrested for fighting in the city, all his video content will be ruined. But, to his surprise, the knights recognize him, calling him by his in-game nickname, Sir Wet Towel. They kneel down, saying they were looking for him and asking the protagonist to come with them. With a smile, Doji celebrates the unexpected turn of events, because his day, which was going badly, suddenly got much better. He sees the skip button and wonders if he should use it to speed up his trip with the knights. Without thinking too much, he decides it does not matter and presses the button, skipping the entire journey to his destination. Suddenly, the protagonist finds himself in a large throne room, looking around confused and not knowing where he is. Sitting on the throne, a king greets him by his nickname and thanks him for saving the kingdom from crisis. The king also mentions he heard Doji obtained the ice flower by defeating the dragon, praising his potential. With a slightly odd smile, the king asks if he has any questions or needs to be met. The protagonist eagerly replies yes, he has a very important question to ask the king. He then holds up the onion he received from the knights and asks, annoyed, what the heck it means. The king laughs at the question and says he needs to explain in detail about the hero's heart he carries. Next, he explains that the onion is an artifact that represents the determination of an ancient warrior of the kingdom. Doji finds the explanation completely nonsensical, wondering where the similarity between a heart and an onion is. Having no patience for more explanations, he says he has understood enough and uses his skill to skip the rest. After the skip, two guards bring in a large chest, and the king says that is the reward for his efforts. With his eyes sparkling with greed, Doji can hardly believe he is going to get a chest full of gold as a prize. But the king interrupts him with a serious look, saying he heard he was prisoned at all the recent floods. The scene shows a flashback of Doji watching the flooded village he accidentally caused himself. Another image shows the colorful creatures being swept away by the current during one of the floods. Back in the present, the guy tries to play it off, saying the flood happened while he was on a quest. The king laughs, saying he expected an answer like that, seemingly amused by the situation. As Doji is about to open the chest, a man in a suit stops him, telling him to wait a second. The man unrolls a huge scroll, declaring they need to calculate the damages caused by the two floods. He then starts listing the losses, announcing that the gold in the chest will be used to cover part of the costs. Terrified at the possibility of having to listen to the whole list, Doji decides to use his skill to skip. But the man continues, saying he owes a massive debt and the rest of the damages will be charged to his name. The king, laughing at the situation, agrees with his advisor's decision, much to Doji's despair. The protagonist is shocked, not understanding how the damage was so great that they confiscated all his gold. The king explains that the kingdom's gratitude is immense, so there is no need to reward him with money. Desperate, Doji insists he wants to be paid in cash, while his little octopus shakes its head negatively. He then grabs the onion, thinking that if the hero's heart is so important, it must be expensive and can pay off his debt. But the king laughs and explains that it is a gift given to a hero, not something that can be sold. After saying it all, the king makes a dismissive gesture, ordering him to go to the next quest location. Before he can react, the protagonist is thrown out of the castle by an invisible force. As he is tossed far away, he yells at the king, saying he should also listen to what he has to say. Doji and his octopus end up falling on top of a rocky canyon in a completely deserted place. Sitting on the ground, he complains about the crazy game that makes him start a new journey already in debt. He squeezes the onion in anger, saying that after all his hard work, all he got was a useless item. Blaming his skip warrior class, he throws the onion heart on the ground, and a skill activation notification pops up. With wide eyes, he wonders if he activated his skill again, not understanding what is happening. At that moment, the onion on the ground starts glowing intensely, emitting a powerful and colorful light. Faced with the glow, the onion transforms into a giant sword with a green blade, stuck in the ground right in front of Doji. A system message informs him that the onion he criticized is growing and developing rapidly. With a tired expression, the protagonist sighs, thinking about how everything in that game is different from normal. Next, the system explains that the hero's heart turns into a weapon for 1 minute and has infinite durability. The guy looks at the new weapon, still unable to believe a simple onion could turn into something like that. He picks up the sword and thinks that even though he knows nothing else about it, he is sure getting hit by it would be terrible. Annoyed by his little octopus's comments, Doji threatens it, saying he will use it to test the new weapon. Suddenly, a mysterious voice comes from behind him, offering to help him test the sword. A level 65 knight introduces himself as a sparring partner for Sir Wet Towel. Doji is surprised because an NPC with such a high level shouldn't be just a random, unimportant character. The knight stares at him with a powerful aura, telling him to make his first move in the duel. With a challenging smile, the protagonist accepts the fight, saying he has no reason to refuse a challenge. Wasting no time, he charges toward the knight, preparing to deliver a strike with his new sword. With a focused gaze, the young man completely concentrates on the combat that is about to begin against his opponent. He tries to attack, but the onion sword's blade passes through the knight's body as if he were a ghost. Not understanding what happened, he notices his little octopus is sneezing because of the weapon's strong smell. The knight takes advantage of the opening and counterattacks, making their swords clash with a loud, metallic sound. Doji realizes the new weapon has a good grip, which gives him more stability during the fight. With an excited smile, he gets ready to fight seriously, knowing the sword's durability is infinite. He then decides to use his skip skill to go all out, delivering a high-speed strike. The system window shows his sword's swinging skill description again, which is at level 99. The knight manages to block the first attack and warns that, from that moment on, he will no longer hold back. In a quick motion, he delivers a powerful strike, and the impact creates a huge energy explosion. Doji, who is defending himself, is shocked by the force of the attack, barely able to believe what happened. The knight, standing amid the smoke, wonders how the protagonist is still standing after such a strong hit. The guy in turn looks at his hand with a look of panic and surprise. The onion sword has returned to its original form, and the system warns that it cannot be used while it recovers stamina. Furious, Doji yells that the infinite durability story was a big scam to trick him. The knight comments that the weapon's usage time was much shorter than the previous warriors, and that Doji still needs to train. He then reveals that not everything the king says is true, and that he will help him defeat the boss of the strange swamp. As he walks away, the knight says the previous warrior did not hesitate and advises him to hurry up. He thinks to himself that with Doji's current skills, he has no chance of defeating the bosses. But, turning his back, the knight coughs in pain, revealing that Doji's attack injured him severely. He cannot believe he suffered internal injuries, even having been distracted for just a second. Wiping his mouth, the knight wonders if Doji is really the same person as before. Meanwhile, the protagonist yells at the knight, saying he is not the hero who is going to turn the world upside down. Crouched on the ground, he decides to organize his thoughts, worried his subscribers will abandon him if he keeps this up. He imagines the blue creatures commenting on how he was defeated by a simple NPC after beating a boss. With a serious look, he concludes the knight is an important NPC for the story and that the king wants to find a warrior. Gritting his teeth in anger, Doji realizes the king is not looking for a hero, but a slave to do his work. The onion is lying on the ground, and Doji complains that the limited use time makes the item very hard to use. With a resigned expression, he concludes that, in the end, he is going to lose anyway. He decides there is no use complaining, and that it is better to just head to the strange swamp, as the knight had said. But suddenly, the skip button pops up in front of him, and the little octopus grabs it, surprising the guy. Furious, he punches the button, wondering why it keeps appearing out of nowhere, while his companion watches him. After using the skip, Doji finds himself in a rice field, and the octopus comments the place has a strange smell. The protagonist is confused, not understanding why a rice field suddenly appeared in the middle of nowhere. A series of notifications informs him that he completed the quest to move to the strange swamp using the skip skill. He is surprised to find out that even simple movement quests can be skipped, avoiding the loss of experience. But his surprise turns to anger and he yells, asking why there are rice fields in a place called a swamp. The little octopus, however, gets happy entering the water, saying the place looks like the home where it slept with its mother. Doji scolds it, saying the only similarity is the moisture and wonders why his sea monster likes fresh water so much. The octopus replies they shouldn't be picky and should enjoy what they have, praising the water of the place. The protagonist reaches out to the water, curious to know if it is as nice and soft as the octopus said. Suddenly, something in the water grabs the octopus's tentacles, and it screams desperately for its daddy. The mysterious creature begins pulling the little octopus down, and it yells that something is trying to take it. Doji quickly grabs his companion's tentacles, trying to save it from being dragged to the bottom. He pulls hard, saying he already warned it not to play in the water, and suggests it tear off a leg to escape. The octopus yells it is not a lizard and cannot regenerate, saying its daddy's idea makes no sense. Seeing he cannot save his friend, Doji grits his teeth, realizing he only has one option left. With a desperate shout, he activates his skip skill, trying to solve the situation somehow. The scene shows the octopus's tentacle wrapped around his hand, while he gets ready to use the force of the skip. In a quick and powerful movement, he pulls his companion out of the water with surprising strength. With sunglasses that appeared out of nowhere, he yells that he managed to fish something big along with his octopus. Stuck to the end of the tentacle, a giant horned frog is yanked from the water, revealing itself to be the swamp boss. A system message informs him that, by repeating the same action, he acquired the fishing skill. Next, he receives an achievement for having caught a boss monster on his first fishing attempt. With a victorious smile and still wearing sunglasses, he celebrates the unexpected achievement he just earned. The giant frog, however, is not happy and lets out a furious croak, getting ready to attack. The creature spits a stream of green liquid, and Doji wonders if that is some kind of corrosive acid. He grabs his octopus and gets ready to run, saying that if it is acid, there is nothing they can do. But soon after, he remembers the onion, his sword with infinite durability, and holds it with confidence. He mutters that despite the durability, the sword can only be used for a minute and probably tastes bad. With no more time to waste, he yells to skip and activates the onion's transformation once more. With the glowing green sword in hand, he faces the giant frog, saying he's getting frustrated and that the monster is done for. A comment screen shows the reactions of the people who watch the scene later, mocking him as the worst chef. The narration explains that the views were low because of the long conversation with the king, which caused a bit of confusion. Worried about the audience's reaction, Doji imagines various versions of himself rolling and fighting the frog. He then attacks the monster, saying he will make it pop like a soda to impress his viewers. With a series of strikes, he attacks the giant frog, yelling for the monster to help him increase his views. The giant frog cries in pain, wondering what kind of sword is that hurts it so much. It then spits in Doji's direction, who complains that the disgusting monster spat on him in the middle of the fight. The protagonist dodges, annoyed with the mess and worried this might affect his video views. He notices the frog's body is turning red and wonders how many times he has already hit it with the sword. A notification explains that the smell of the onion makes the opponent angry and the frog roars in fury. The system then informs that the angry frog entered the second phase of the battle, getting even stronger. But Doji does not care and keeps attacking the monster with his onion sword, giving it no break. Several water globes explode around them, showing the intensity of the strikes in the battle in the swamp. Finally, the giant frog falls into the water, defeated and with no strength to keep fighting the protagonist. Doji's sword turns back into its onion form, and he celebrates finally taking down the monster. With one foot on the frog's body, he stares at it with a victorious look, wondering what else he can do. Two notifications inform him that the hero's heart hunted the boss, and that he will receive 2 random cards as a reward. Suddenly, an avalanche of huge text appears, telling the story of a lost kingdom and a legendary hero. Annoyed by the amount of text, Doji yells, asking if a 3-line summary wouldn't be enough, and asks to skip. The system grants his request, and a message informs him that the story will be summarized in just 3 lines. The summary explains that the hero of the kingdom gains strength upon discovering a secret, and that the frog was a hidden boss. Next, a new passive skill exclusive to his class is created, called 3-line summary. Another message warns that his unknown charges keep accumulating, reaching a total of 32 points. Doji is shocked to realize the game actually fulfilled his request, even though he was the one who asked for it. Suddenly, an intense yellow light begins to emanate from his body, and he wonders what is happening. With his eyes glowing and gritting his teeth, he feels a massive amount of power flowing through him. A system window informs him that, by completing the king's quest, his level restrictions have been removed. In an instant, all the experience he accumulated is used, and his level jumps straight to 30. With the new energy flowing through his body, he stretches, feeling the power of the level increase. He complains there was a level restriction and no one warned him, but a note reminds him he skipped the tutorial. The guy wonders if the developers just do whatever they want in the game, but is surprised to hear he is now at level 30. He thinks it is a little, but his little octopus scolds him, saying he went up 30 levels all at once. Doji defends himself, saying he fought hard to capture all the bosses, but the system reminds him he caught them easily. He then wonders if his class needs more experience to level up, comparing it to a larger bucket. The protagonist worries the difficulty to level up is too high, but the octopus says the performance is already good. He replies that falling too far behind in leveling hurts his pride as a competitive player. The little octopus sighs, thinking about how complicated and hard to understand its daddy is sometimes. Suddenly, Doji notices the ground is rising and pulls his companion up, who complains in pain. A notification informs him that the dungeon reward distribution is complete and he will be moved. The message continues, explaining the strange swamp will be moved to another location and the field is being cleared. Next, the field turns into a regular rice field and Doji wonders what exactly changed. A system window pops up in front of him, leaving him surprised and a bit suspicious of what he sees. It is the skip button again, and he feels a sense of déjà vu, getting worried about skipping at that moment. But the octopus encourages him to press it already, and he smashes the button with his fist, unable to resist the temptation. After skipping, he finds himself in a familiar rice field and wonders if it is the same field from before. A group of farmers celebrates, saying the new hero saved them and the rice field is finally back. The farmers bow in gratitude, and the system informs Doogie he has reached maximum favorability with them. An additional message reinforces that the rice field owners will never forget the favor he did for them. For saving the residents, the system also informs him that Doji's hero's talent increased by 1 point. With a satisfied smile, the protagonist celebrates, saying that is the sweet taste of hard work. He turns to the farmers and says it was nothing, but that he will accept their sincerity so as not to be disrespectful. The farmers whisper among themselves, commenting that the hero seems humble, but also a little mean. Hanging upside down, Doji glares at the two men with a scary shadow, saying he can hear everything. The men apologize, but he says it is not necessary and instead asks them a question. With a confident smile, the protagonist points at them and asks what he should do from now on. The farmers are shocked and confused, wondering why a hero like him would be asking them for advice. Seeing their reaction, Doji wonders if he should skip this part, as the skip button appears again. He starts punching the button repeatedly, yelling he doesn't know what it is, but there is no time to waste. With a final punch, he presses the button with all his might, activating the skip skill once more. After the skip, he finds himself alone in the rice field and wonders why the farmers ran away without saying anything. Suddenly, a massive spiked metal weapon appears behind him, coming his way at high speed. He throws himself to the ground to dodge the attack, realizing something exciting is finally happening. The weapon, which is attached to chains, stops in the air, showing it is being controlled by someone. A strong fist grips the chains, indicating the weapon's owner has impressive physical strength. A large, strong man appears, complaining the field has turned into a rice paddy, and there is an onion-smelling guy there. Crouching on the ground, Doogie observes the newcomer, concluding he must be a mercenary NPC. The man yells in anger, saying he spent 10 years looking for the strange swamp, and Doogie moved it. He then swings his weapon, accusing the onion-smelling guy of being the one to blame for his frustration. The mercenary attacks, but Doogie dodges with a jump, yelling back that he is ugly and has no moral high ground to speak. With the onion in hand, he taunts the man, saying he is slow because he is stupid. He continues grumbling about how the onion is a useless vegetable that smells bad and makes his eyes sting. Gritting his teeth, he tries to activate the onion's transformation once more, yelling to skip. But a notification informs him the item's stamina has not recovered, and there are still 20 seconds left on the cooldown. Furious, Doogie yells that the onion is completely useless, realizing he is in a tough spot. The mercenary calls him useless for being unarmed and gets ready to attack barehanded. He spins his body and throws his metal weapon, saying he doesn't know how Doogie defeated the frog, but his luck has run out. The weapon flies toward the protagonist, destroying the ground and kicking up debris in its path. The man laughs, saying no one has survived his skill and that he will give Doogie a large amount of sticky saliva. With a confident smile, the protagonist asks if that is the mercenary's true purpose. The scene shows the man's weapon being replaced by a metal spinning top, which he throws forcefully. Doogie's hand glows with red energy, and he wonders why the NPCs in that game are so greedy. He prepares to counterattack while a large dust explosion forms around him. The guy clenches his fist, which now glows intensely, saying he likes the more realistic feel of the game. He then uses his firework slap skill, hitting the top with his flaming palm. The mercenary is shocked, unable to believe Doogie managed to block his skill with a hit that looked more like a punch. With a wicked smile, the mercenary says he thought Doogie was a nobody, but he is quite skilled. Suddenly, the man rips off his clothes, revealing an extremely muscular body and getting ready to fight seriously. He introduces himself as Minjorsi, leader number 210 of the Diet Mercenary Guild. Minjorsi cracks his knuckles, promising to show his true power and end the fight once and for all. An image shows a hammer falling in the dark, while a voice says it was a good life, as if saying goodbye. Doogie mocks him, asking if that was Minjorsi's secret move, laughing at the situation in an exaggerated way. He continues to mock him, saying number 213 is no different from the guild's lowest rank. With his hand in flames, the protagonist readies himself to use his fire skill again. Minjorsi yells he will not give him any openings and challenges him to attack, ready for whatever comes. Doogie charges with his hand in flames, yelling he will turn the mercenary into a fried anchovy. But, upon touching Minjorsi's body, the fire goes out with a sizzle, dealing no damage at all. They both look confused, not understanding why the fire skill did not work as it should have. A system notification informs him that Doogie's mana has run out, and he panics, realizing he is out of resources. The mercenary calls him weak and tells him to prepare to become a slave for his guild. Seeing he has no other choice, Doogie decides to use his little octopus as a weapon, who complains about hating squishy things. The protagonist mutters something as he gets ready, and the octopus yells that this is child abuse. He then reveals he was just waiting for the onion's cooldown to end, ignoring his companion's drama. Minjorsi doubts the weapon makes any difference, but gets hit dead on by the onion sword. The mercenary cries out in pain as he is pierced by the green blade, which goes straight through him with ease. With a final strike, Doogie takes him down, saying he can beat someone of his rank without using any skills. He brags, saying a number 1 veteran streamer like him can do much more than that. The system congratulates him on the victory and informs him he is now a target of the Diet Mercenary Guild. The protagonist is shocked by the news, turning around with a look of panic and surprise. He complains that Sun Okang and now even mercenary NPCs are chasing him for no reason. After the battle, he picks up the items left by the mercenary, a piece of stone and a slimy blue sphere. The octopus finds the items disgusting and says it does not want to be near them, expressing its displeasure. Its companion reminds it that it also hated the smell of the onion, so there is nothing new about its disgust. Doji wonders what the blue sphere is, an item so valuable that even the king and entire guild were after it. With a sly smile, he realizes that if he sells that item, he might be able to pay off his entire debt. Elsewhere, a scene shows monkey-like monsters spawning in a dungeon. They appear in a purple portal, and the narration explains that this is the only path they can follow. A female silhouette uses an earth spike magic, easily defeating the advancing monsters. The woman, who is Sun Okang, smiles with satisfaction, commenting that her skills are perfect for that dungeon. With a confident look, she turns around, knowing more enemies will come from the opposite direction. She explains that this is the best place for auto-hunting, since monsters spawn from both sides. The streamer then uses her magic to defeat the hordes of monsters that keep appearing non-stop. Tired, she comments she has been hunting in the same spot for a long time, but managed to level up twice in 10 hours. Meanwhile, Doji watches her video on a screen, impressed by the content about such an efficient hunting spot. He gets annoyed, feeling the spot should be his, and decides he is going to really unsubscribe from her channel. But when trying to click the button, he ends up tapping the video, and Sun Okang winks at the screen, as if it were for him. With a shy smile, Doji points at Sun Okang's video, unable to deny his feelings. He admits she looks pretty in that pose and decides not to unsubscribe, since they even greeted each other. The little octopus scolds him, saying he was drooling while researching the sticky saliva. Doji changes the subject, saying nobody was buying the item, and he didn't even sell it when he put it up for auction. He concludes the saliva does not seem useful and plans to throw it at the king, imagining his reaction. With a caricature of the king, he hopes the item will at least help reduce a bit of his massive debt. The octopus supports the idea, saying it is a good thought and its daddy should keep it up. After spying on other streamers, Doji decides to check his stats and pinches his companion's cheek. With a smile, he says that normally, he should increase his strength stat as a close combat warrior. A screen explains the different attributes in the game, such as strength, agility, intelligence, and wisdom. The narration continues, explaining that in many games people only focus on strength and intelligence. Even with the arrival of virtual reality games, most players still stick to these two builds. But Doji, with an eccentric smile, declares he will put all his points into wisdom. He then applies his 250 stat points into wisdom, increasing his mana and regeneration. The little octopus is shocked and asks if its daddy has lost his mind, spending all the points on mana. With wide eyes, it repeats the question, unable to believe Doji did something so unusual. The protagonist laughs, saying his subscribers will probably have the same shocked reaction. He explains that in this game everything comes down to skills, and strength is useless if you cannot land a hit. Furthermore, he argues that increasing mana is more advantageous for a fast-paced game concept like his. With a look of pure excitement, he calls himself the Total Wisdom Warrior, hoping this will attract attention. He decides the title of his next video will be The Birth of the Total Wisdom Warrior. To show off the strength of his new build, he throws a stone in the air, saying he needs a real fight. He wonders if there is anyone else around to challenge him, like the mercenary he defeated. The octopus scolds him, saying he is a spoiled brat and is distracting it with the stone game. Suddenly, the stone starts glowing and an unexpected event notification pops up, describing it as a dry stone. He throws it away, thinking it is a useless item, and the octopus asks where they should go now. Doji finds the quietness weird, commenting there is usually a skip button to speed things up. As soon as he speaks, a notification informs him he is using the skip skill, even without wanting to. Surprised, he wonders how he activated the skill, while a blue screen appears in front of him. The stone he threw away hits the ground and, upon touching the dirt, starts glowing with a green light. From the spot where the stone fell, a massive beanstalk starts sprouting and growing at an impressive speed. The octopus mutters a bad word while the beanstalk grows out of control, swaying from side to side. Doji realizes the stone was actually the magic bean from the Jack in the Beanstalk story. He notices the beanstalk is thicker on the sides and wonders why it has such a weird shape. Looking inside, he realizes the beanstalk is growing downwards, not upwards. Crouching at the edge of the hole, he tries to understand the situation, still not sure of what he is seeing. On an impulse, he gets ready to jump, driven by curiosity and the thrill of discovery. He leaps into the hole, saying a true gamer cannot turn down a challenge like that. As he falls, he confirms his theory, realizing this is an inverted version of the Jack in the Beanstalk story. The octopus, using one of its tentacles as a parachute, yells at its daddy for jumping without any plan. While falling, Doji tries to calm his octopus, saying they are almost there and to hold on a little longer. 30 minutes later, the octopus complains they are still falling, and the guy insists he can already see the ground. An hour later, the little octopus looks completely exhausted and drained of energy, with its soul leaving its body. With numb feet, Doji complains he cannot skip the fall and that taking 2 hours to get down ruins the video. Suddenly, he realizes they have finally reached the bottom of the hole, celebrating with a smile. The octopus, furious, yells it does not believe him and tells its daddy to go down alone next time. They land with a thud, kicking up a small dust cloud as they hit solid ground. The protagonist kneels down to comfort his companion, who seems traumatized by the long drop. He tries to justify himself, but the octopus compares him to parents who always say we are almost there on long trips. A system notification pops up informing him Doji was the first to discover that secret dungeon. Standing in front of a cave with 2 giant statues, the system promises extra rewards upon completion. With an excited smile, the guy celebrates, saying that is the true fun of a game. He already imagines the title of his video and enters the dungeon, excited about the attention he will receive. Inside the cave, a stone hand holds a spear, indicating the presence of a guardian or monster. One of the statues moves and tries to crush him with its spear, but he manages to dodge at the last second. With a smile, he says the attention he will gain includes that of the dungeon monsters. He gets ready to fight, telling his subscribers to watch what he is going to do next. The stone statue raises its hand to attack, and the guy gets into a stance to defend against the strike. The stone fist hits the ground with crushing force, but Doji manages to avoid the direct hit. With a confident smile, he remembers that before he could only use his slap skill once. But now, with more mana, he jumps and hits the statue with a second flaming palm strike. Doji's silhouette stands out as he destroys the monster's stone arm with his attacks. Standing amid the rubble, he brags, saying that is the power of putting all your points into wisdom. He continues talking to his imaginary audience, explaining that this is the battle of a man, a warrior. After taking down the statues, he faces a huge stone golem with several hands blocking the way. He feels a little embarrassed for having talked to himself for so long, feeling a bit awkward. The octopus asks why he was talking to himself and how he knew the statue would attack him. Embarrassed, Doji explains that veteran game streamers would immediately notice a statue like that was a monster. He looks into the darkness of the cave, saying what has happened so far is nothing compared to what he expected. Deep inside the cave, 2 glowing red eyes appear, revealing the presence of a new enemy. The protagonist and his octopus turn around scared, feeling the dangerous presence approaching. A very dangerous stone statue comments that fools keep coming to the adventurer's grave. Doji tells himself that, as an experienced player, he should look tough, but the monster mocks his outfit. The protagonist decides to wait and see what the creature will do as it leaps towards him. The statue tells him to fall into an eternal slumber, just like all the other adventurers who dared enter there. The monster attacks with a powerful punch, but Doji dodges easily, as if he already expected the move. He comments the creature is as solid as it looks, while it glares at him with angry red eyes. The statue launches a series of attacks, but the guy continues to dodge all of them with agility. The monster praises him for being more careful than he looks, while the octopus complains he is only dodging. With a quick movement, Doji leans against the cave wall, getting ready for a counterattack. With a worried look, Doji focuses on dodging the stone statue's attacks, not knowing how to strike back. The statue punches the wall, and the octopus yells at Doji not to even think about using it as a shield again. The protagonist explains he studied the monster and cannot keep up with it using his current stats. He continues to dodge, saying he does not want to get hit by that ugly thing, while the statue destroys everything. With a confident smile, he reveals he was not playing weak, but rather analyzing his opponent. He tells the octopus that if his calculations are right, he has a plan to defeat the creature. According to him, the monster's speed is not a problem, and he prepares to put his plan into action. With a quick motion, he positions his hand, getting ready to use one of his skills. He then activates his skip skill, focusing all his power into a single, fast movement. In the blink of an eye, an intense light fills the screen, showing the superhuman speed of his attack. The statue is hit dead-on and thrown against the cave wall with crushing force. The system informs that by skipping the attack speed, he managed to land an instant hit with no delay. A new message warns that one more unknown charge has been stacked, totaling 34 points. He also receives an achievement for successfully using a skill without reading its description first. The guy celebrates that his plan worked, and he even got an achievement, while the octopus looks at him in shock. The statue struggles to its feet, and Doji recognizes the move it is about to make. With a wicked smile, he tells the monster it is done for, readying his hand which now glows red. He activates his skip skill again, dashing forward with a red aura to deliver the final blow. Using the fireworks slap, he hits the monster square on, causing a massive energy explosion. Doji feels the skill is getting stronger and that the sense of power feels great. He keeps attacking repeatedly, using his skip skill to create a sequence of fast strikes. The statue's body starts glowing red, showing the damage it is taking from the continuous attacks. The creature yells, saying it has been a while since it saw that kind of attack. It tries to defend itself, but the force of the blows is so great that its stone body begins to crack. The statue launches a counterattack, but Doji with his agility manages to dodge and keep up the offensive. He gets annoyed, wondering why all the enemies he encounters seem to know him somehow. He wonders if this is a story exclusive to his class, but thinks the monster is too strong. The protagonist keeps fighting, thinking he has never heard of an exclusive storyline for his secret class. The statue asks if he found the hidden job, revealing it is now curious about him. With a smile, the creature says it thought the legacy of that class had been lost, but was mistaken. It then grabs a giant stone sword, declaring it will end his legacy right there. Doji realizes he is being pressured and the situation is too difficult for his current level. The statue challenges him to show everything he's got if he wants to live, but he just mutters to skip. The monster attacks with its giant sword, but the guy manages to defend at the last second. The creature laughs, praising his hero talent, while continuing to pressure him with its strength. Doji apologizes but tells the monster to watch where it steps during the battle. Suddenly, the statue looks down and realizes it stepped on something unexpected on the cave floor. With a sly smile, the protagonist says that even being level 50, the fight will be different with him. He reveals he has already figured out all the monster's attack patterns, holding the onion in his hand. With the sword in flames, he warns he will give the statue a 1-minute slash it will never forget. A system window describes the wildfire skill, an upgraded version of set on fire that is very hot. The stone statue smiles, saying that if Doji wants to be a hero, he needs to prove his worth. It challenges him to show at least that level of power and attacks him with its flaming sword. Doji uses his skip skill repeatedly, trading 5 strikes with the statue's sword. The monster acknowledges the guy's attacks and become faster and sharper than before. With his flaming sword, the protagonist declares the real battle starts now, full of confidence. He then uses his wild swing technique, delivering 4 continuous slashes at high speed. The skill description appears, explaining it is a free movement with the sword, with no special technique. The stone statue's eyes widen, shocked by the strength and speed of Doji's attacks. With the sequence of strikes, the monster's stone body is completely destroyed, and Doji yells that is it. He brags, saying that is the true power of a total wisdom warrior. The little octopus, its eyes shining with admiration, says its daddy looked really cool this time. Doji explains that before he could only use the skill twice, but now he can use it 4 times in a row. He keeps bragging, saying he can defeat any boss if he understands their attack patterns. The protagonist takes the chance to plug his channel, asking people to like and subscribe. A notification informs him that by using the skip 8 times, his unknown charges went up to 42. But he is interrupted by another message saying he completed the dungeon achievement and earned 1 more talent point. He looks at the talent point and assumes stacking them up must be the requirement to become a hero in the game. Suddenly, he turns around as if he heard something and gets a look of surprise. He recognizes the voice he just heard and wonders why it is there right now. The voice, belonging to the hooded old man, says this is all part of the test to become a hero. The old man emerges from inside the cave wall, praising Doji for having listened to his long story and found the dungeon. The protagonist and his octopus widen their eyes in horror upon seeing this sudden appearance. The old man approaches with a scary face, and they both scream in fear, not understanding how he got there. Doji covers his ears, trying to calm down after the scare he got from the man's appearance. The old man explains he was waiting for him and was impressed by his ambition to save the world. The guy gets annoyed, wondering why his new summary skill does not work on that NPC. He then decides to use his skip skill to speed up the conversation and get it over with as fast as possible. Several of the old man's dialogue boxes flash rapidly, skipping the entire story he was telling. After a long time, the old man finally stops talking, saying he feels better after the light chat. The exhausted octopus comments that the old man talked for 77 hours and still called it a light chat. Doji is shocked to hear how much time passed and asks if the conversation is finally over. The system informs him the 3-line summary skill is available since the conversation ended. The summary explains the dungeon is a test, and failing results in a 1-year account ban. Furious, the protagonist complains no one would expect such important content to be hidden in such a long conversation. The old man then offers him a quest, asking if he accepts the beggar grandpa's request. Doji is suspicious, thinking the old man won't give him any useful information, but a note reminds him he was the one who skipped. He decides to accept the quest so as not to ruin the video, hoping the conversation does not drag on further. The old man thanks him and starts turning into smoke, saying he will count on his help. Before disappearing, he warns him to check his inventory, as he must have received an item to return to that place. As he fades away, the hooded old man warns Doji he only defeated the statue and not him directly. He finishes by saying Doji better complete the quest quickly before he vanishes completely. Relieved, the protagonist comments on how crazy the old man is for insisting on talking until the very last second. The little octopus questions him, asking why he accepted the quest if he hates the old man and the idea of being a slave so much. Doji explains that as a skip warrior, his weapon has a limited time and he needs more experience. He also thinks about how he will have to edit out the part with the old man's long talk so he won't bore his viewers. The octopus nods, agreeing with its daddy's logic even if it does not fully understand it. The protagonist then approaches a green portal, assuming it will take him to the next quest location. As he gets closer to the portal, the octopus screams in terror, saying something is falling from the cave ceiling. Doji looks up and sees a rain of rocks and boulders crashing down on them in a cave in. He throws himself to the side, narrowly dodging a massive rock that falls exactly where he was standing. The guy realizes this was the reason the talkative old man ran away from that place so quickly. Furious, he runs toward the portal, promising he will not let the old man get away next time they meet. He manages to run through the portal at the very last second, escaping the cave's collapse. The dungeon entrance is completely buried by rocks, sealing the path forever. the cave ceiling continues to collapse, showing the scale of the destruction that happened there. Meanwhile, on the surface, the blue creatures panic as they feel the ground shake and cave in. Other NPCs run around desperately, yelling they lost their items and even their dogs' houses. Amidst the chaos, a mysterious man in a straw hat watches the scene, wondering about the mess. He recalls all the recent disasters like the flood, the avalanche, and now the earthquake. The man, an investigator, finds it weird that so many natural disasters are happening in a row. He tells himself he has already read the game's entire story, but has never seen anything like this. With a gleaming eye, he is sure there is something hidden behind all these events. The investigator decides he will not progress in the story until he fully understands what is going on. Far away in a forest, Doji and his octopus rest near a small wooden cabin. The protagonist wipes the sweat from his forehead, saying he worked really hard this time and is exhausted. He hopes that at least everything ends with the dungeon's collapse, with no more disasters to add to his debt. But a notification informs him the dungeon collapse caused an earthquake and a sinkhole in the neighboring village. Next, another message congratulates him on earning the title Master of Natural Disasters. The system also warns that due to his new title, his bad reputation in the game is increasing. With his head in his hands, Doji groans, unable to believe the situation has reached this point. He stands up and yells in indignation, saying he was not the one who caused all those disasters. An image shows the flood, and he blames the Kraken's mother for the water disaster. Next, an image of the avalanche appears, and he blames the sniper guy who attacked him. He admits the fire was his fault, but continues to defend himself against the other accusations. Finally, he blames the old man for the earthquake, wondering why everyone is putting the blame on him. The octopus interrupts him, saying that is not important right now, and pointing at something in front of them. It says that although there seems to be nothing there, it keeps hearing a strange sound coming from that direction. Doji agrees, saying the place looks like a haunted house, and he feels a ghost might show up. He remembers that every time he moved, he ended up in a boss arena, and concludes the house is a clue. Standing in front of the cabin, Doji says that from experience, he knows there must be some weird mechanism there. He complains it is annoying to have to check everything one by one to find the secret. Out of patience, he decides to use his fire skill to burn the whole cabin down at once. A system window describes his wildfire skill again, warning that it is very hot. With flames reflected in his eyes, he excitedly says to burn it all and get it over with. He also says his time with his subscribers is precious, and so he decides to use his skip skill. After the skip, he finds himself in an open field, surrounded by several stone statues that look like the ones on Easter Island. He approaches one of them, wondering if it is another stone monster he needs to face. Looking at the statue's appearance, he wonders if the boss this time will be Medusa. The ground begins to shake, indicating the statues are starting to move and come to life. Surprised, he screams when he realizes the statues are actually moving, confirming his suspicions. The little octopus on his shoulder panics, warning that all the other statues are moving too. The stone statues surround him, rising from the earth and getting ready to attack the protagonist. He grabs his onion, wondering if the goal is so obvious that he just has to break the statues. One of the statues leans over him as if greeting him, leaving him confused. He wonders what that sudden greeting means, not understanding the creature's intentions. Suddenly, all the statues merge together, and he screams in terror, not knowing what is going on. The statues fuse into a single giant creature, and two glowing red eyes appear from the darkness. The protagonist panics, yelling that this situation is completely crazy and unexpected. He complains this is too much as a massive stone golem forms right in front of him. The stone golem speaks, saying Doji has finally arrived for the hero's test. The creature comments his smell is worse than it imagined, letting out a strong breath. The wind from the golem's breath is so strong it almost knocks him over, and he complains about the blowing force. The octopus yells for him to cover the monster's mouth, while Doji complains about the rotten smell coming from it. He plugs his nose, saying the golem should stop talking if its breath is that bad. The stone golem stares at him with a serious look, saying it is looking forward to what is coming. It says it is looking forward to seeing Doji's courage, as several rocks float around it. The protagonist gets annoyed, saying getting crushed entirely has nothing to do with courage. He complains that the deceit in that game has crossed the line and decides to use his skip skill. With the help of the skip, he slides across the stone floor, moving at high speed. The scene shows the fast and fluid movement as if he were surfing on a smooth surface. The octopus, confused, says that does not look like a superconductor or a smooth move. Doji yells there is no way to know what it is, since the skill window has not popped up yet. A notification informs him that through repetitive action, he acquired a new skill called Superconductor Step. The description explains it is a skill that allows him to move fast enough to float in the air. He mutters that even though he goes through difficulties, others probably just see him floating. Next, he uses his new skill to slide up the side of the golem, looking for a weak spot. With quick movements, he runs across the monster stone surface, preparing a surprise attack. He then uses his fireworks slap, hitting the golem with his flaming palm. The stone golem complains he is too noisy, seemingly unaffected by the blow. Using his new skill, Doji runs across the golem's giant hand, looking tiny in comparison. He keeps running up the monster stone surface, climbing higher and higher on its body. The scene shows the scale of the creature, with the protagonist looking like a small speck on its hand. The golem compares him to a mosquito, preparing to crush him with its other giant hand. Doji is crushed between the monster's palms, and the impact leaves him dizzy and unresponsive. Opening his eyes, he sees the golem's hand approaching again, and lets out a scream of panic. The creature crushes him once more with overwhelming force, creating a massive impact sound. A small hole forms in the golem's hand, showing the exact spot where Doji was crushed. The impact throws him far away, and he falls at high speed, spinning in the air out of control. He wonders if this is how a bug feels, while his octopus yells for him to dodge properly. The golem brings its hands together to crush him again, saying any attempt to escape is useless. It strikes the ground with a devastating blow, saying Doji does not deserve to be a hero. The creature stands up, believing the hero this time has finally failed the test. But a close-up of the golem's arm shows that Doji managed to hold on to the stone surface. The protagonist complains bosses are unfair, while the octopus encourages him to use his mosquito skill. He tries to use his superconductor step, but a notification informs him the skill does not work in midair. Annoyed, he wonders what kind of useless skill that is as he slides down the monster's arm. The golem calls him a failure and readies the final blow, its hands prepared to crush him. Doji swears, realizing there is no way to escape the impending attack and no chance to defend. In an act of desperation, he grabs his octopus's tentacles, saying they need to survive somehow. He then uses the fishing hook skill, turning his companion into a hook to save himself. The octopus's tentacle grabs firmly onto the golem's stone surface, creating an anchor. Using the momentum, Doji manages to swing and land safely, yelling they have been saved. He looks at the golem's colossal size, thinking it is not even worth trying to fight it head-on. He then grabs his octopus's head, which complains fearfully, asking what he is going to do. The protagonist climbs the monster's body, saying he is going to aim for the clay pot, meaning the head. He explains that since the outside is too hard, the best strategy is to attack the inner parts. Reaching the top, he grabs the onion, getting ready to put his plan into action. The octopus doubts the hero's test is that simple, but Doji decides to try anyway. He says that if it doesn't work, oh well, and gets ready to use the onion in an unexpected way. The guy starts praising the onion, saying it is smooth and cute like a bald head, and then yells to skip. He declares that is the praised onion, while holding it with a determined expression. A notification informs him the hero's heart now has limited use, and the way to use it is by throwing it. The description continues, explaining the area around the onion will generate an extreme stench. The onion begins to glow with a purple aura, and he realizes this is not what he expected. The octopus complains about the smell, asking if he plans to fight smelling like that. Doji complains, saying he expected a praised onion to turn into a spear, not a stink bomb. He yells at the system for lying, but notes that somehow the onion seems stronger. The protagonist reveals he planned to stab the golem's eye if the onion turned into a spear. He then throws the stink bomb, which hits the stone golem right in the eye. The stone golem reacts to the smell, plugging its nose and complaining about the stink bomb's unbearable odor. The creature starts thrashing around, trying to get rid of the smell, while Doji lands on its shoulder. He wonders if the monster's reaction is normal, since he just threw the item like the description said. Suddenly, an intense light starts glowing from inside the golem's head, getting ready to explode. The monster's head explodes in a fireball, sending stone debris everywhere. The blast throws Doji into the sky, and he spins in the air, yelling and not understanding what happened. He complains the description didn't mention the onion would explode, and that he didn't even use his skip skill. Mid-air, he tries to balance himself, moving his arms and legs to control the fall and land safely. He slides across the ground using his momentum to slow down and avoid a rough landing. Finally, he manages to stop, digging his foot into the ground to steady himself after the unexpected fall. The landing creates a trail of dust, showing the force and speed with which he hit the ground. He launches himself forward once more, using the momentum to reposition himself on the battlefield. Striking a hero pose, he stops, finally firmly on the ground after all the chaos in the air. His little octopus complains, saying that if it stays with its daddy, it won't live up to its name. Doji looks at the golem, which is now headless, and realizes it was not defeated by the explosion. A glowing light appears in place of the monster's head, indicating it is regenerating or changing form. The golem's body starts breaking apart into pieces that float around a core of light. The stone parts regroup, and the golem reconstructs itself, revealing the legacy of the skip hero. The onion falls from the sky, and Doji catches it, finally understanding what the item's true function was. He realizes the beggar old man was the clue to solving the golem's riddle and taking it down. The monster turns into a fusion of several animal statues, and Doji wonders if it is a robot combination. He focuses, realizing the onion in the center of the formation is the true target he needs to hit. Out of the smoke, a red-haired man appears, and the protagonist wonders if he is the hero. But he quickly gets annoyed, yelling and asking where the clothes are on the man who appeared out of nowhere. The octopus worries, saying broadcasting a scene like that might get the channel banned. Doji grabs the man, who wonders how long it has been since he felt this free, but the guy tells him to keep quiet. He stretches him, wondering if he should take advantage of the situation a bit longer, while the octopus scolds him. The man breaks free and tells him to talk later, challenging Doji to show what he's got. Striking a heroic pose, he yells for Doji to go all out, but the protagonist thinks he is ridiculous for posing without clothes. He then covers his octopus's eyes, telling him not to let that creepy old man show up on screen. The octopus agrees, saying it also does not want to see that, and they need to be careful with the scene. A system window describes the fishing skill, explaining he can catch anything with a hook. He then uses his octopus as a hook, securing it firmly to one of the stone statues. With the octopus secured, he readies himself to attack, saying this way they can clear everything faster. Towards the other statue, he extends his hand which glows with red energy, preparing another attack. He tells the octopus to take care of one side, while he charges forward to attack the other statue with his skill. The little octopus launches itself towards one of the monsters, following its daddy's orders. It turns into a spinning ball of blue energy, ready to collide with the target. The octopus's impact completely shatters the stone statue, showing its surprising strength. With a satisfied smile, Doji praises his companion, saying it is not so bad after all. With a focused look, Doji analyzes the situation, thinking about what is left for him to do in the battle. He notices that there are still 2 stone statues left and prepares to face the remaining enemies. Determined to end it quickly, he activates his superconducting step skill to attack. In the blink of an eye, he moves at high speed, leaving a trail of blue energy wherever he goes. With his fast movements, he manages to take down the 2 stone monsters all at once, celebrating his victory. But suddenly, a voice tells him to stop, and he turns around in surprise, not knowing where the sound is coming from. The hero without clothes appears, praising Doji's performance and telling them to stop right there. He praises the young man's move, but Doji yells at him not to come any closer, still bothered by the lack of clothes. The protagonist also complains about the sound effects that accompany the mysterious man's appearance. The hero gets closer, and Doji complains about the strange smell coming from him, which seems familiar. With a smile, the man says he has smelled that before, sniffing the air with satisfaction. He then declares that it is the scent of the hurt of a disciplined hero, looking excited. The man approaches Doji, saying that a true hero keeps a steady heart and that the onion did not rot because of that. He holds Doji's arm with surprising strength, praising him for finding the statue's weakness. The hero introduces himself as Pilot Joe, one of the secret heroes, and continues to shake Doji's hand. A system notification informs him that he was recognized by Pilot Joe and passed the first stage of the test. Another message warns that his heroic qualities have increased by 1 point as a reward. The system also informs him that he discovered a secret hero and obtained a clue about the hero's secret. Pilot Joe starts talking nonstop, saying he has a lot to tell him, but Doji already finds him to be a chatterbox. He tries to skip the conversation, but the man questions him, asking why he is not answering. Annoyed, Doji blows up, saying he cannot break the game and that he is frustrated with the situation. With his eyes glowing red, Pilot Joe challenges him, asking if he wants to try and that he will be eliminated if he does. Doji feels an immense pressure and wonders if that is a choice to continue the fight against the boss. The hero says he will take the silence as a yes, and that there are things he will have to do, whether he likes it or not. He then starts looking for something on the ground, while the octopus tells him to speak properly, without stuttering. With a smile, Pilot Joe says he found what he was looking for, looking very satisfied. He shows a small red hero uniform, saying it is an indispensable item for every hero. Doji is shocked to realize the item is a pair of tight pants, unable to believe what he is seeing. The hero complains about the young man's reaction, telling him to just wear what was given to him without being picky. He explains that he doesn't understand why a hero would care about such useless details and hands over the item. Doji analyzes the pants, asking if they are different from the previous ones and if they only appear when necessary. Pilot Joe confirms, saying that no hero wanted such a feature and that he must wear the suit from now on. He continues, saying that seeing Doji made him change his mind about finding a disciple. Excited, he says he will consider the young man as his disciple and give him the suit he planned to pass on. Doji complains that he didn't even want the item, while a bird attacks him, and he wonders why the hero doesn't wear it. Pilot Joe explains that it was too hot inside the statue, so he took his clothes off to be more comfortable. The protagonist complains that it is no wonder no one wants to be a hero if the job is so unpopular. He whispers to the octopus, saying the outfit is perfect for the video, as it naturally draws attention. The octopus glares at him with disapproval, saying that his daddy is always like that, only thinking about views. Pilot Joe says the suit looks good on him, and that now they can start getting down to real business. But Doji refuses to listen any longer, yelling with all his might to skip the dialogue. In response, a system window informs him that the conversation with the NPC has ended and activates a passive skill. The 3-line summary says that heroes of the past are hidden, and the next test is to get their recognition. Meanwhile, Pilot Joe walks away, telling Doji to visit him anytime if he needs help. The young man breathes a sigh of relief, commenting that it was a tough fight, and the octopus says he feels much better now. Doji is worried, as he is sure his live stream will be flagged because of the previous scene. At that moment, a system window appears before him, and he thinks about taking the opportunity to leave a message. The message is from the broadcast team, which confirms Doji's suspicions that he would be in trouble. However, the team contacts him to invite him to an event, and the young man is surprised it is not a punishment. He smiles in relief, thinking he wouldn't be shocked if he were banned, but that he managed to hide the situation well. Suddenly, a totally unexpected new message appears on his screen, leaving him confused. The mysterious message says the sender knows what he did and tells him to go to a place called R. The protagonist gets annoyed by the lack of information, questioning where exactly that place would be. He keeps shouting the same question, frustrated with the vague detail of the message he received. Thinking it's a prank from his viewers, Doji tries to close the window with an angry gesture. The window, however, does not close, and a new message pops up, saying he cannot leave in the middle of the conversation. Startled, the young man looks all around the forest, trying to figure out if he is being watched by someone. The voice in the message asks if he is ready to listen now, while Doji complains that everyone bothers him. Right after, the window displays another text, warning him that this is not how the game is played. Tired of the situation, he tells the person to mind their own business and blocks the message with a strike to the screen. He turns to the octopus and vents, asking why his stream only attracts weird people. The octopus replies that it is because he himself is like that, so his viewers end up being just like him. Upset, Doji grabs Octopus and defends himself, firmly stating that his stream is clean and scandal-free, but his companion looks at the young man's tight suit and says he doesn't seem to understand what "call clean" means. The protagonist remembers the outfit he is wearing and looks visibly annoyed by the situation. He then analyzes the item's details, which has infinite durability, is self-cleaning, and is part of a set. Suddenly, his expression shifts to one of greed, and he admits that now he wants to collect all the pieces. The young man complains that such an important detail like being part of a set was written in tiny print. While putting on his normal clothes, he mentions that something has been bothering him this whole time, making strange noises. As he finishes getting dressed, an energy glows in his hand, and he says it is about time something happened. Then, Doji yells for whatever has come in to reveal itself already, trying to force the story forward. A button to skip. The scene appears before him, and the young man gets ready to see what the next crazy thing will be. With a quick and decisive move, the protagonist presses the button to fast-forward the events immediately. The scene cuts to the spot where the stone giant was, showing a large opening in the ground releasing smoke. Suddenly, a huge cloud of smoke and debris explodes violently out of the hole in the ground. The explosion turns into a massive pillar of fire and lava that shoots up towards the sky. Doji watches the scene in shock, laughing nervously as he realizes the giant acted as a cork for a volcano. He stares at the massive eruption in front of him and cannot believe the scale of that insane event. The octopus on his head looks desperate, trying to pull him away from the approaching danger. As he runs from the fast-moving lava, he screams, not understanding how a volcano can erupt without a mountain. While fleeing the wave of lava destroying the forest, Doji complains that this game simply makes no sense. In a moment of panic, his eyes widen at the destruction he unintentionally caused. He looks back at the eruption, hoping the situation isn't about taking down NPCs again. At the same time, in a nearby village, the residents run desperately from the fire and volcanic ash. After running for a while, Doji stops and looks back, wondering if the danger is finally over. In the distance, the eruption seems to have died down, with only a few flames and thick smoke remaining on site. The protagonist finds it strange, thinking everything calmed down much faster than he expected it to. A system window explains that the impact from destroying the fusion golem is what caused the volcano to erupt. Another notification informs him that a total of 4 villages were affected, and for that, he received the title of King of Destruction. Due to the new title, people will start developing an unexplainable distrust toward him. The octopus says the situation doesn't look quiet at all, and Doji laments that his reputation is ruined for good. His companion questions if he really thought he could get a good reputation with that personality. But Doji clenches his fist, determined to complete all the achievements, something no one has ever done before. He then opens a system interface, preparing to put a new plan into action. The young man decides he needs more information and that it is time to do a live stream after so long. Under the title Legendary Reputation Farming of the Wise Warrior, he starts his broadcast. Without understanding, the octopus asks why he is doing this so suddenly. Doji explains that when you need information, the best way to get it is by asking the viewers for tips. With a smile, he greets his viewers and subscribers, saying it has been a while since his last live. A viewer mocks the stream's title, and Doji explains he is planning to farm his reputation. Another person in the chat gives a tip that to get reputation achievements, kingdom quests are the best. The protagonist reflects that kingdom quests are just orders from the king, wondering how he ended up in that mess. A viewer comments that they heard reputation achievements give great rewards. Next, another comment pops up questioning the reason he only started streaming now. Doji looks thoughtful, doubting that a game like that could really offer incredible rewards. Seeing there's no more useful information in the chat, he decides to answer a few questions and go to the king. He explains to the audience that he has only been posting edited videos because the lives get boring with stream snipers. Suddenly, a voice comes out of nowhere, and he turns around startled, recognizing who is speaking. A man with an eye patch runs toward him, and Doji wonders if it is another player coming to bother him. The chat reacts to the man's arrival, and Doji tenses up, as he cannot attack other players during the stream. He angrily thinks he should have defeated that guy last time, so he would never bother him again. The eye patch man tells Doji to focus on him and prepares an attack with his green tipped staff. Doji dodges and yells for the man to go home if he is bored, asking why he is bothering him again. With a smirk, the eye patch man says he likes the protagonist's reactions. He then pulls out a flask with a green potion, mentioning the humiliation Doji put him through. With a vengeful look, the man says he came to return the favor and throws the potion at Doogie. The potion explodes on the ground, releasing a massive cloud of green smoke that covers the entire area. When the smoke clears, a horde of various monsters appears behind the eye patch man. He yells for the monsters to charge, revealing he spent the last hour gathering all of them for the attack. However, one of the monsters lands a direct punch on the man's face, knocking him down before the fight even begins. Doji yells, finding it unbelievable that the man spent 1 hour gathering monsters just for a failed attack. Lying on the ground, the eye patch man is attacked by the very monsters he summoned, admitting he didn't think the plan through. The protagonist decides not to care about the mess and runs toward the horde, ready for an all-out attack. He says that since he has only been facing bosses lately, he is curious to test how good his gear has gotten. A powerful red energy gathers in his hand as he prepares to unleash a new skill. With a single strike, he launches a giant flaming hand attack, finding the result perfect. The eye patch man, still on the ground, watches the scene with an expression of pure terror and shock. A massive explosion of fire completely consumes the horde of monsters that was on the battlefield. The wave of flames sweeps through the forest, disintegrating all enemies in its path with overwhelming power. After the attack, the area is completely devastated, with smoke rising from the defeated monsters. One of the monsters that survived the initial attack looks around, completely confused by what just happened. With his eyes glowing red, Doogie charges with a battle cry toward the remaining enemies. He screams for the monsters to run if they don't want to be annihilated, and they flee in total panic. Following that, a series of achievements are unlocked for defeating 1, 10, 30, and 50 enemies with a single strike. The system confirms the successful hunt and grants him bonus experience for completing the battle. With a smug smile, the protagonist wonders if he is even stronger than he thought. He turns to the octopus and brags, saying that was a demonstration of the Supreme Wisdom Warrior's power. With an intense look at the camera, he tells his viewers that if they want to see him crush the stream sniper, they should send the letter over and over in the chat to show their support and excitement. The live stream chat is immediately flooded with supportive messages from the viewers. Satisfied, Doji thinks that with the mood set, attacking another player shouldn't cause any controversy. He then turns to the eye patch man with a dark smile, saying that, in short, he is finished. His opponent looks visibly intimidated and speechless, holding his staff awkwardly. Showing no emotion, Doji asks what his opponent's name was again, proving he didn't even remember him. He ignores the lack of response and says the stream sniper is done for anyway, preparing a new attack. Several small energy explosions are fired at the ground surrounding the eye patch man. The protagonist notices his skill casting speed has increased, guessing his opponent has also improved. In the chat, viewers wonder about the new skill, which seems to make Doogie float in the air. The eye patch man is also confused by the unknown skill, thinking it might be a problem. However, he cracks a confident smile, revealing that he has now reached level 100. Being a level 100 player, he has finally unlocked his ultimate skill and starts casting it. This is a special skill that doubles all his stats, drastically increasing his combat power. The technique is called the Tyrant of the Day Before Discharge, and his appearance changes to that of a soldier. Viewers in the chat start making fun of his new look, and he angrily yells at them to shut up. Doji notices his viewer count is dropping fast because of the drag-it-out fight. He decides he needs to end this once and for all before more people leave the broadcast. Running toward his opponent, he shouts that he needs to delete him from his live as quickly as possible. The eye patch man shoots with his weapons and says he will hold out until all of Doji's viewers leave. Doji's attack lands dead on, causing an explosion of red and white energy on the adversary. Right after, a second larger explosion occurs, ending the clash once and for all. Doji celebrates his victory, shouting that it was a great display of power for all his viewers. But the eye patch man still withstands the multiple energy strikes, taking the damage with a sarcastic thank you. The protagonist charges with everything, unleashing a flurry of fast and powerful attacks against his opponent. Furious at the delay, Doji yells that his enemy deserves to turn to dust and lunges forward with his hand glowing in flames. The scene becomes a blur of speed and power, with the sound of a massive explosion echoing throughout the forest. However, the eye patch man shows a confident look, claiming he predicted that move too. With a green energy shield, he blocks the strike and brags about his close combat skills. Doji watches him calmly with a mocking expression, questioning if the enemy's performance wasn't poor. In an instant, the protagonist's hand shines brightly, shattering the energy barrier into 1,000 pieces. The eye patch man stumbles back from the impact, while Doji says that level of effort was to be expected. Yelling to skip the scene, he lands a powerful punch, commenting on the satisfaction of crushing someone. He continues with a brutal sequence of punches, repeatedly shouting skip, without giving any break. With one final powerful blow, the protagonist blasts his adversary away with an energy explosion. The eye patch man is in shock, unable to understand how he was hit by a fire skill and basic attacks. Seeing a smile on Doji's face, he realizes that the entire sequence of attacks lasted only 1 second. Terrified, he admits to himself that his opponent is much faster than he ever could have imagined. Furthermore, he notices the young man uses no weapons, meaning his strength and agility are basic stats. Being bombarded by strikes, the man screams non-stop, feeling the massive amount of damage he is taking. The beating continues, and he concludes that Doji is landing far more hits than the naked eye can see. Hit by one last devastating blow, he regrets being too confident in his ultimate skill. The man's body begins to disintegrate, and in his final moments, he admits he underestimated Doji's power. Even defeated, he says Doji's skills haven't changed, and that he still has a chance to turn the tables. At that moment, the octopus grabs the fallen man's ankle, preventing any kind of movement or escape. With full force, the little octopus slams him into the ground, opening a small crater with the impact of the blow. The eye patch man lies in the hole, grumbling that the hit didn't hurt, but it bruised his pride. Doji approaches with an onion in his hand, saying that before the final blow, he just wants to ask one question. The fallen man calls him a weirdo and asks what message he is talking about, completely confused. The protagonist mentions the "I know what you did" message and asks if the man was planning to give him advice. The adversary denies it, but then sits up and admits the idea of sending something like that sounds fun. Suddenly, the man sees Doji talking to an onion and asks what that is, wondering if it's a criticism onion. In his thoughts, the man feels regret, believing he would have won if the monsters had attacked Doji. His hand glows and he admits Doji didn't do badly, promising to return for a new battle in the future. He promises to come back with an even more shocking entrance and disappears in a beam of light, fleeing the scene. Alone on the battlefield, Doji just sighs, wishing his annoying opponent would never come back. He thinks that disappearing quickly is the enemy's specialty and analyzes that the fight was easy because he uses magic. The young man turns serious, reflecting that if the level gap were bigger, the fight would have been fatal for him. The octopus complains that a weirdo showed up and wasted their time, and that Doji missed the chance to humiliate him. But Doji whispers that the fight revealed the Skip Warrior's weakness, leaving his companion very curious. He explains that when his skills are on cooldown, his damage is as low as a mosquito's. With a determined look, he concludes that to make up for the low damage, he needs to yell "Skip" as fast as possible. The octopus glares at him with disdain, asking if he is seriously practicing how to say the word "skip" faster. Doji decides to end the stream right there, turning to leave while the octopus shakes its head in denial. Waving at the camera, he says it's a shame he didn't land the final blow, but he will crush the enemy next time. He ends the live stream by asking viewers to subscribe and turn on notifications so they won't miss the continuation. Just then, a comment pops up on the screen, asking about the mysterious message he had received earlier. He explains to the chat that, before the stream sniper appeared, a lunatic sent him a threatening message. Pointing at the camera, Doji sends a direct warning to the message's author, saying he is doomed if he gets caught. In a dark room, a mysterious figure watches the stream and replies that the one who is doomed is Wet Towel. The figure smiles maliciously, revealing himself to be the person who sent the messages to the protagonist. He recalls the messages he sent, angry for being ignored and now directly threatened by Doji. Filled with rage, the mysterious man starts typing rapidly on his keyboard, planning his revenge. He decides to expose all the chaos Doji has caused, posting everything on the community page for him to be judged. A post appears, accusing the streamer of causing floods that disrupted the game's beginners. The list goes on, showing that his actions melted a mountain's snow, making the local boss disappear. In another village, the earthquakes he caused wiped out NPCs and turned quests into meaningless tasks. Finally, the volcano eruption covered an entire village in ash, making the area completely unplayable. Several comments from other players start popping up, blaming Doji for failing their quests and losing items. The post goes viral and reaches a gaming gossip channel, which decides to make a video about the streamer. The video argues that, because he has a low level and weak gear, he is causing chaotic events for attention. The host even mentions the volcano video, saying most comments accuse Doji of overacting. Back in the forest, Doji watches the video exposing the whole controversy, growing increasingly worried about the situation. He and the octopus panic, realizing the situation is very bad and will spark a huge controversy. Doji wonders why gossip channels got involved, but tries to stay optimistic, believing in his subscribers. However, he soon falls to his knees in despair, knowing reality won't be that simple. He screams in frustration, questioning if people even saw the original video and insists he didn't do anything. The octopus says that even though it wasn't his fault, 4 villages suffered and asks how many subscribers he lost. Devastated, Doji answers with a cry of pain that the number of people who unsubscribed was 15. Hearing the number, the octopus just stares at him with a straight face, showing no reaction of surprise at all. The protagonist tries to downplay it, saying it was only 15, but his companion smacks him on the head. Indignant, he wonders how people are leaving his channel, even though he works so hard to create content. The octopus asks if the 15 left because of the controversy, and Doji, looking down, says he can't be sure. He then explodes with anger, blaming all that mess and madness on a single group of people. With fire in his eyes, he says it is the fault of the complainers who use anything to create controversy and ruin him. Punching the ground, he continues venting, saying they will paint him as washed up to sabotage his channel. With a fierce, determined look, Doji declares that the complainers need to be silenced as soon as possible. He then starts walking toward a large castle, and the octopus asks what he is going to do there. The young man turns around and yells with all his might that he will do it to have a positive influence in the game. He punches the air with determination while his companion stares at him, completely confused by that logic. Continuing on his way, he explains he needs to become a hero to drive away the complainers with good deeds. He finishes his reasoning by shouting that becoming a hero is the fastest way to make everything happen. In the throne room, the king welcomes Doji with a laugh, asking how the test to become a hero is going. In response, the protagonist shows a toxic sphere, a legendary item capable of melting anything it touches. The king gets excited, saying that, as expected, Doji succeeded and proved he has what it takes to be the next hero. With a greedy look, the monarch reaches out and demands the young man hand over the item immediately. Doji, however, thinks to himself that this is an undiscovered quest item and he cannot give it away. With a sly smile, he refuses to give the item, saying he cannot just hand it over like that. Annoyed, the king demands what he means, stating the item has no use to the boy whatsoever. The protagonist shoots back that, although he doesn't know its use, it is something the king desperately needs. Pressured, the king asks what Doji wants in exchange for the item, already expecting a tough negotiation. Reluctantly, he offers to reduce a portion of the debt the protagonist owes the kingdom as payment. Doji explodes with anger, knowing the king will just add the costs of the volcanic eruption to his debt. The king then asks, with a suspicious expression, what amount they would be talking about for the deal. With a mischievous smirk, Doji tells him to forget the debt and states his true demand to the monarch. Standing before the throne, the young man demands to be promoted to hero immediately, in exchange for the legendary item. The king starts laughing, finding the request amusing and saying he is a very funny aspiring hero. But his expression turns serious, and he explains that the title of hero is not something he can just grant to someone. The revelation catches Doji completely off guard, and he stares at the king with an expression of pure shock. The monarch continues, asking what Doji's level is and if he has even met the requirement to become a hero. The protagonist thinks that, being a random game, he could force the promotion, but realizes the situation is complex. He reveals his level as only 65 and wonders if there is a fast way to become a hero. With a mysterious smile, the king confirms that there is indeed a path to what he so deeply desires. He describes a place no one has ever managed to clear, a place where only true legends are born. With a dramatic gesture, he reveals the name of the place, saying it is the legendary training tower. Doji thinks about the tower, knowing that usually the higher the difficulty, the better the rewards. He thinks the place is great for training, but considering the current controversy he is in, it is even better. Grinning from ear to ear, he realizes he can hide in the tower and come out stronger when everything blows over. The young man already imagines the perfect narrative of a hero sacrificing himself for the players, thinking the idea is amazing. Excited, he raises his arm and yells that he doesn't know where the tower is, but he is ready to go right now. The king smiles, satisfied with the young man's spirit, and says he will explain a bit about the training ground. But Doji interrupts him with a shout, telling him to skip the explanations, as he is in a huge hurry to start. The king insists on giving one final warning, but the young man is already yelling to enter, getting teleported to the location. He spawns in a dark, reddish place, completely different from what he expected, and wonders if that is a tower. Before him is a giant greenhouse, and he gets annoyed at being tricked, since that is not a tower at all. The place is actually a hellish dungeon, and Doji wonders if the game is an RPG or a farming simulator. Upon entering, he questions if the goal of the place is to turn players into farmers instead of heroes. A message informs him that, to this day, no one has ever succeeded in clearing that challenge. The system notifies him of his entry into the hidden tower and warns that he cannot leave until he completes it. Doji uses irony, saying the tower has nothing hidden about it, since it is literally a vinyl greenhouse. He then panics upon remembering the most dangerous rule, because being defeated there could permanently delete his account. Looking into the massive structure, he feels uncomfortable, and a narration reveals the tower's height. Annoyed, Doji complains to himself, saying he had a bad feeling about that place from the very beginning. He curses the greedy king who sent him to the tower, lamenting that all his hard work got him nothing in return. But the octopus reminds him that he was the one who said the place was perfect for getting stronger while hiding from others. The protagonist shoots back that hiding isn't the problem, but not being able to stream is, which could ruin his channel. Faced with a system window, he realizes with frustration that he is being forced to take a break from his streams. Left with no other choice, he decides to post an announcement saying he will be away, since the location doesn't allow lives. After sending the message to his followers, he prepares for the challenge that is about to begin in the tower. With a loud noise, a large gate opens, revealing the first floor and the dungeon's first enemy. A monster that looks like a giant boar appears, and Doji declares he will clear the tower faster than anyone. The red-eyed creature lets out a roar that sounds oddly like a sheep's bleat. Doji gets ready to fight, even not knowing if his health and mana will recover as he climbs the floors. He charges at the monster, completely in the dark about how the rules of that tower actually work. The creature bleats once more, and the protagonist decides that, at least for the first floor, he will use a simple tactic. With a clenched fist, he charges forward to crush the enemy using only basic attacks without spending resources. However, the damage caused by his punch on the enemy's health bar is practically zero, almost invisible. The young man is completely shocked, unable to believe his powerful strike had almost no effect. The beast takes the opportunity to counterattack, using its tusks to launch Doji into the air. Tossed over the monster's horn, he wonders how the first floor can already be this difficult. A system notification explains that the difficulty adjusts to the player's level, but the rewards are always the same. He complains about the small print, and the octopus says maybe it is, because he is way too impatient. Ignoring it all, he decides to focus on ending the fight, going after the enemy with everything he has. Seeing that normal attacks are useless, he gathers energy in his hand and activates his skip skill. Next, he unleashes a flurry of powerful punches, repeating the word skip to speed up the combat. Hit square in the head, the monster finally feels the damage and lets out a cry of pain for the first time. After landing, the protagonist realizes something else had been bothering him throughout the entire battle. He remembers that a wild boar should act and sound like a wild boar, not like another animal. Annoyed, he lands another punch on the creature and asks why it is bleeding like a sheep. The young man keeps yelling at the monster, wanting to know if it is some kind of Pokemon by any chance. Tired of that logicless situation, he jumps in for a finishing blow, saying he is already irritated enough. The strike destroys a smaller version of the creature, and he complains about having to burn through mana at such a fast pace. With a new resolve, he changes his strategy and decides to completely forget the plan of saving resources. Suddenly, a loud noise echoes through the arena, and the giant monster returns, even bigger and more threatening. With his feet glowing with energy, Doji announces that to keep things simple, he will start using his skills. He smiles with his sharp teeth, remembering that spamming skills is the Wisdom Warrior's strong point. The giant monster lets out a different and much scarier roar, preparing for real combat. The force of the creature's roar generates a powerful shockwave that spreads across the entire first floor. Next, the boar charges at high speed with its horn glowing with a destructive energy. But Doji counters with his fire skill, releasing a blast of flames that hits the enemy head-on. The flames completely engulf the monster, which screams in pain as its skin begins to burn. Seeing the effect of his skill, he smiles, thinking that if everything goes wrong, he always has his ace in the hole. A system notification informs him that a skill is being used the moment he moves forward. Doji watches the monster burn, saying it had been a while since he was like this and wonders what else he can skip. The creature's body, now completely charred, falls lifeless to the ground, releasing thick smoke. In its place, a massive chunk of cooked meat appears, and the system notifies him of the successful cooking. He then acquires the cooking skill and earns the title of second-rate chef for it. Holding the meat, the protagonist is confused, not understanding how burning something can be considered cooking. But he decides not to question it, thinking that since it's free, there is no reason not to eat the food. Upon eating it, he discovers the dish restores health and mana, as well as boosting meditation effects for 1 minute. With a smile, he realizes he can cook boss meat to recover, saving a lot of time. He then rereads the item's description, curious about what the mentioned meditation bonus effect would be. Without a second thought, he sits on the ground in a lotus position, determined to test the new skill. However, a system window informs him he cannot use the skill, as he hasn't acquired it yet. With a confident smile, he asks himself why he wouldn't have such a skill, as if he already knew the answer. He then brings his hands together, preparing to meditate, but instead, yells to skip the action completely. An aura of green energy surrounds him, and he starts levitating, using his skill to speed up the process. The light grows more intense while the skill's power fully concentrates in his body. The system confirms the skip, and for maintaining stillness, he instantly acquires and maxes out the meditation skill. For being the first to do so, he gains bonus stats and the skill evolves into a more powerful version. With a green flame on his forehead, he admires his new stats and realizes the new skill is completely broken. After recovering, he stands up and a door opens at the end of the room, pointing the way to the next floor. The large wooden gate slowly opens, revealing the passage to the training tower's second challenge. Far away, a mysterious person holds a glowing card commenting on Wet Towel's insane luck. He sees a news report about the rise of a new guild, which ended up overshadowing the controversy surrounding Doji. The man, a former streamer named Sumbatuchi, realizes Doji announced a break with perfect timing. He gets frustrated, complaining about how exhausting it was to have to write the community posts to defame his rival. But he looks at a video of Doji and says there is still one thing he can do to continue his plans. The screen shows a clip from one of the protagonist's recent battles, highlighting his combat skills. With his face contorted in anger, Sumbatuchi grits his teeth and swears that Doji is going to regret everything. The scene shows the former streamer with his back turned to an image of Doji, with a narration about the types of number 1. He reflects on his own condition because for people like him, the title of former number 1 exists. The scene then shifts to the game's current number 1 guide streamer, a player named Godamo. The former streamer continues his narration, saying that in the gaming world, the exact same ranking logic applies. He explains there are top rankers in class level, gear battle rankings, and much more. Becoming number 1 is hard, but at least in games, it is something that can be achieved through hard work. But he questions himself about the streaming world, where effort alone is not enough to reach the top. He looks at his low viewer count, thinking how hard it is to capture and even harder to win back the audience's attention. The guy laments that, even though he was the best, he is now treated like an outdated and forgotten relic. A donation message on his live stream questions his comeback, saying he lost his touch after so long. Frustrated, he thinks he was almost done with his plans, but his rivals are making everything difficult. Finally, he explodes with rage in front of his camera, blaming Wet Towel for all his current hardships. Under a spotlight, Sunbutuchi reflects that when he was number 1, he didn't realize that the concept is everything in streams. He screams that Wet Towel used the Conqueror concept to take down big streamers one by one and steal his throne. With his hands on his head, he despairs because Doji, who calls himself a guide streamer, only defeated innocent people. The viewers in his chat start criticizing him, saying he is just making excuses for having lost. With a dark look, he announces that his new comeback concept will be that of a revenge seeker. Clenching his fist, he swears that with the skills he honed, he will get his revenge and drag Wet Towel to rock bottom. Another comment mocks him, saying the only thing at rock bottom is his chat and that Doji would defeat the boss fast. Irritated by the criticism, but still with a lot to say, Sunbutuchi decides to get straight to the point of his announcement. He points at the camera and reveals he will prove to be better than his rival in the upcoming streamer challenge. In a dramatic close-up, he firmly declares that this is the reason he has finally returned. Back in the tower, a deer-like monster wearing golden armor appears with a deafening screech. Doji covers his ears, complaining about the noise and wondering if after the boar, he is now facing a deer. The monster continues to scream, and the powerful sound echoes throughout the entire arena environment. The protagonist finds it weird that the second floor boss spawned before he even advanced further into the tower. A system window explains that due to his class, bosses of similar types will spawn all at once. Surprised, Doji didn't know his class had a trait like that and becomes worried about the challenge. Soon after the third floor boss, a giant insect with blue wings appears on the battlefield. The fourth floor boss, a shadowy furry creature with red eyes, emerges from the ground with a high-pitched squeal. Finally, the fifth floor boss, a bear monster with sharp claws, appears, completing the group of enemies. Unshaken, Doji just comments that, at this point, he is not even surprised by the game's bizarre antics anymore. The deer monster charges with an aura of green energy, releasing a slashing attack towards the protagonist. The giant insect also attacks, firing an energy projectile from its mouth at high speed. Doji prepares for battle, thinking that if the monsters are like the first boss, then their base stats must be ridiculously high, making the fight a true test of endurance. He realizes that, since they are grouped up, he can save time by using area of effect attacks to defeat them. A system notification describes the fishing skill, which can be used to catch anything. With a quick movement, the octopus stretches its tentacle and smacks the deer monster in the face with a slap. Doji praises the move, and the octopus spins the monster in the air before slamming it forcefully into the ground. The impact of the monster hitting the floor kicks up a large cloud of dust and opens a small crater. Without wasting time, the octopus uses the deer's body as a weapon, landing a solid hit on the insect monster. Doji smiles, saying that if the game is going to be like this, then he doesn't need to play by the rules either. He runs toward the furry monster, getting ready to face the giant creature in direct combat. Meanwhile, the bear monster charges with its claws glowing, ready to attack the protagonist. With a quick slide, Doji dodges the bear's attack, passing under its legs with agility. The protagonist prepares to use his fishing skill, saying he is not holding back anymore either. He uses the octopus as a whip, hitting the furry monster's eyes and the bear monster's legs. With a battle cry, he continues to swing the octopus, hitting multiple enemies at the same time. The attacks become faster and faster, creating a red and powerful blur of motion in the arena. The protagonist gets excited by the speed of the strikes, and the monsters are tossed from side to side. With a steady step, he prepares for the next move, ready to continue his relentless offensive. With a powerful stomp, he hits his foot on the ground, generating a shock wave that spreads across the entire battle arena. The impact of the blow throws all the monsters into each other, creating a huge mess on the battlefield. As the furry creature charges to attack, Doji prepares a skill, saying there is something he wanted to test. With an excited smile and a determined look, he decides that this is the perfect moment for his experiment. He then uses his fire skill to set the grouped-up monsters ablaze, an upgraded version of his technique. His power manifests as a massive fire tornado that completely consumes all of his enemies at once. The flames spin with overwhelming intensity, leaving the creatures absolutely no chance to escape. With his eyes glowing red, the protagonist yells to skip the scene and speed up the skill's outcome. He explains that by using skip, he is applying all the continuous burn damage in a single, powerful strike. The system confirms the skill was skipped, applying 30 seconds of damage in a single instant. After the smoke clears, Doji celebrates with a laugh, happy to find out that his plan actually worked. Satisfied, he sits on the ground to test the super powerful skill he acquired, Circulate, Chew, and Breathe. The skill resets all his cooldowns and increases maximum mana based on the time used. But after a while, he starts to feel bored and wonders if he is too addicted to dopamine. He tries to stay calm, realizing this is the first time he has gone so long without doing absolutely anything in the game. The young man gets tired, saying he has been at it for too long, and that he has had enough time to gather his thoughts. So, he stands up all at once, deciding to end the use of the Q circulation skill to keep going. A system notification informs him the skill has ended, and that his mana will increase for 5 seconds. Doji yells in outrage because it felt like 5 hours had passed, but in reality, it was only 5 seconds. Disappointed, he calls the skill trash and discards it, while the octopus comments on his over-the-top attitude. He grumbles that he thought he could exploit the skill, but the game always finds a way to complicate his life. Annoyed by the situation, he decides he will just clear the tower as fast as possible and charges forward with a kick. 3 days pass and a giant boss with horns and red fur lets out a roar of pain in the middle of a battle. The creature tries to crush Doogie between its massive hands, but the young man resists the attack with his strength. Exhausted, the protagonist breathes a sigh of relief after the long and difficult battle, wondering if it's finally over. A system window congratulates him, informing him that he was the first to clear the 99th floor of the tower. He also unlocks an achievement for clearing the 99 floors on his first attempt in the challenge. Confused, he wonders if that's all there is, hoping for some kind of reward or special event for the achievement. A blue light appears, and he yells that it's obviously not over and demands to be released from the tower immediately. But the system informs him that due to his class, he will be taken to a secret location before the next boss. The protagonist and his companion are shocked by the notification, wondering what that secret location could be. The ground beneath their feet begins to crumble and he panics, questioning how many floors the tower has. With nowhere to hold on, the boy and his companion fall into a dark abyss that opens up in the arena's floor. As they fall, the octopus screams in panic, and Doji complains that the situation is getting way too ridiculous for him. He yells at the game to stop messing around, worried that his public image will tank if his disappearance continues. After the long drop, he finally lands in a dark alley with brick walls and sighs tiredly. He wonders how many floors the tower has, guessing it might be a symbolic number like 333. The octopus complains about the bad smell, comparing it to Doogie, who says that isn't important right now. Holding its nose, it argues that the smell is indeed important and thinks the concept of the new location is way overdone. He looks around and realizes he is in a fertilizer shed, complaining about the game's bizarre logic. Looking at the stacked bags, the protagonist wonders if by chance this is a farming simulator. A system window informs him he has arrived at the secret workshop of a past hero, revealing the purpose of the place. The notification continues, explaining that successfully upgrading an item will allow him to advance to the next floor. Doji covers his nose because of the smell, complaining that everything in that supposed workshop is completely rotten. He then turns to the items on the ground, wondering what exactly those strange things are. But before he could investigate, the system skips the explanation due to his skip warrior class trait. Unsurprised, the young man concludes he needs to upgrade something to be able to leave that place. He already figures the task won't be simple and that it must be some nonsense exclusive to his cursed class. Looking around the shed, he notices the only items he can pick up are the ones on the floor. The available objects are pesticide fertilizer, a bar of soap, and a green onion, with one of them being special. With an expression of disgust, he admits he doesn't know what they are for, but that he doesn't want any of those items. He crouches down, suspecting it's a trap, and decides to test the system with something disposable before failing. Just to be safe, he grabs the bar of soap and uses his skip skill to force the item's upgrade. To his surprise, the system congratulates him on the upgrade, and he is amazed that it actually worked. A notification explains that the workshop's effect grants a special ability to the upgraded item. The skill's effect skips the target item's time, and the system informs him that 1 year has passed for the soap. Tired of the lack of logic, Doji yells that he gives up trying to understand and hopes the result is a long-range item. Several windows pop up, informing him that 10 years have passed and the item has become a relic called Soap of the Void. With the upgrade complete, the system sends him directly to floor 100 of the training tower. In the blink of an eye, the protagonist is teleported to the next level, appearing in a whirlwind of energy. He reflects on what happened, concluding that the upgrade's success wasn't because of the soap. Looking at the item, he thinks no self-respecting hero would use that an old relic-grade soap. He gets annoyed, imagining that the former skip warrior created garbage by skipping time and ended up treating an onion like a treasure. Disappointed, he complains that he expected a bonus floor or some good gear, but only got trash as a reward. Seeing his frustration, the octopus on his shoulder asks why he is so obsessed with long-range items. Before he could answer, a silhouette appears, and the system announces the arrival of the floor 100 boss. The young man then grabs an onion, explaining that throwing items are the most efficient for his fighting style. He squeezes the onion tightly, saying this is the kind of item that makes him feel most confident fighting. The scene shifts to a baseball field, and a narration says he needs to clear 100 more floors. A baseball is thrown at full force, hitting the target dead center with an impact sound. In a flashback, a younger Doogie says he was a player who couldn't think of anything else besides baseball. His goal was to become the league's best pitcher, and he was good enough to be a top draft pick. He kept training hard in the minor leagues, improving himself more and more to reach his big dream. Patiently, he waited for his chance to finally be called up to play in the professional major leagues. But during a game, he was hit by a broken bat, and his career ended before it even started. Left with no other choice, he abandoned the field and the sport he loves so much, his future entirely uncertain. He had never imagined a life without baseball, and because of that, he felt completely lost and hopeless. While recovering from his injury at home, he spent most of his time in his room on his computer. It was during this period that he ended up getting addicted to games, finding them fun, but with little content to explore. He wondered if there wasn't something more fun, and the time he spent in the billionaire for a day event inspired him. Watching videos, he always found the ending to be the same and thought he could do better than other players. That's how, with nothing else to do, he decided to try doing a guide stream and ended up becoming a streamer. After doing some research, he found out that archery required strength and decided to use his talent for an archer build. In this way, he began his journey as a range damage dealer and somehow reached the #1 spot. The octopus interrupts him, saying the story is serious, but he can't see the connection to being a pitcher. Back in the present at the tower, Dudgy eats an onion and says the connection is huge, using skip to emphasize. He then explains that in both baseball and the game, the main goal is to hit targets from a long distance. With a quick and precise motion, he prepares to throw the onion at the tower's floor 100 boss. The onion flies through the air with glowing energy, spinning at high speed toward its giant target. Upon hitting the monster, the item explodes in a flash of light, generating a shockwave that reverberates through the arena. The protagonist smiles victoriously after the attack, commenting that this is exactly how things should be done. Next, a system window appears before him, confirming that the tower's floor 100 has finally been cleared. The octopus, excited, says that although it looks weird, his daddy hit the target dead on once again. Doji looks at the passage that opened up, realizing the tower didn't just have 100 floors, but they are close to the end. His companion makes a joke, asking if he is a time Elon Musk because of his skip skill. The boy ignores the tease and warns that the streamer challenge is about to start, leaving the octopus curious. He explains that it's a competition with several categories, which has become as popular as pro gamer tournaments. The octopus says it's the perfect event for Doji's obsession, and the young man tells it to hold on tight. With a powerful push, he runs at top speed, determined to finish the rest of the floors as soon as possible. The scene then jumps forward in time, showing the outside of the greenhouse 3 weeks after the last events. Suddenly, the entire structure starts to shake and glow, with bursts of light coming from inside it. A massive explosion destroys the entrance to the Venal Tower, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris. Amidst the smoke, a silhouette appears, and a voice asks if everyone was eagerly waiting for his return. With a baseball helmet in hand, the Supreme Wisdom Warrior announces to the camera that he is back. He throws his arms to the sky, celebrating with a shout of joy for finally being able to stream again. His viewers in the chat comment on his over-the-top reaction and ask about the red helmet he's carrying. The protagonist explains that the item is part of his class set, and the system displays the helmet's details. He thinks the item will do for now, remembering he left the greenhouse in such a hurry he didn't even pay attention. Looking at the helmet, he notes the design looks intentionally outdated, with a very classic style. In the chat, people ask where he is, and he looks at the item not knowing what to say, because he skipped the description too. He looks around and finds himself on a seaside cliff, trying to figure out where he ended up after the tower. A series of notifications reveals he unlocked a new continent called Fusion and triggered a game update. With a nervous laugh, he understands that the tower was horizontal, because it connected the game's 2 continents. But his frustration comes rushing back, because he waited 3 weeks just to have his stream interrupted again. Annoyed by the update's noise, he yells for the game to release the content already, as he is tired of waiting. A new message pops up informing him that the new continent is moving toward the game's old continent. The protagonist and the octopus go wide-eyed, shocked by the revelation that an entire continent is moving. The ground starts to shake violently with the movement, and Doji is thrown upward by the force of the earthquake. An image of the planet shows the new continent approaching, and the system warns that a tsunami will hit the old continent. Lying on the ground, Doji despairs, knowing that, as usual, he will be blamed for yet another disaster. While being tossed in the air by the streamer, the octopus has fun, saying it loves playing in the water. On the old continent, players run in panic from a tsunami, complaining about the constant disasters in the game. The update notifications report the loss of 30% of the population and the king's fury against Doji. Fallen on the ground, the young man laments the situation, as he is now considered the greatest enemy of the Kwang's kingdom. The octopus lists all the enemies he has made, from streamers and players to a whole kingdom, and asks why. Doji reflects that it's always been this way, and that after losing everything in baseball, he gained even more enemies as a streamer. His companion asks what he will do, and Doji stands up, noting that the enemies can't get there yet. He clenches his fist, decided to prepare for the streamer challenge and level up by completing quests. With a confident smile, he says there's actually not much room for him to get any stronger. Even so, he admits he might be a little behind on the level front and decides to check the special quest he received. A massive wall of text appears, telling the story of the abandoned heroes, and Doji asks for a 3-line summary. The summary tells him to find the heroes' domain, uncover their secrets, and that filming is prohibited. Outraged, he yells, complaining that filming is always prohibited and that this feels like an anti-streamer zone. He tosses an item, assuming the story is far too important and that, either way, he can finish the quest quickly. With a cutting smile, he brags, saying he knows exactly where the true heroes are hiding. He explains that by being stuck in the tower, he ended up naturally finding things out and putting the pieces together. The young man grabs a pickaxe, calling the heroes enemies of his career, and prepares to skip his way to them. With a single strike, he uses his skill to dig an instant hole in the ground, opening a path. In seconds, he finishes digging, and the system notifies him of the completion of the mining skip. With a satisfied smile at his own achievement, he admires the result of his upgraded skill. Inside the newly created cave, he comments that he has become even faster than before entering the tower. The system then announces that the resting place of the abandoned hero has been discovered, leaving the octopus impressed. Doji reveals that the pickaxe he found on floor 125 of the tower was the first clue to the secret. He continues, saying the helmet he found on floor 500 was also part of the puzzle. The last piece, according to him, was the hidden underground room he found on floor 99 of the tower. He says that, with such obvious hints, he would have to retire if he hadn't figured out the secret on his own. With a focused look, he prepares to finally find what he came looking for in that hidden cave. In the distance, he spots a man sitting by a campfire and sarcastically comments that he looks like a real hero. Surrounded by a dark aura, he says he needs to wrap this up quickly, as there is only 1 week left until the challenge. With a burst of speed, he charges forward rapidly, running toward the man to start the confrontation. Using his new skill, he moves so fast he seems to be floating in the air, standing right in front of the enemy. With his eyes glowing in the dark, he tells the man he is there to take back what was left with him. The man with glowing green eyes is shocked and asks how he knows about that secret place. Slowly, the mysterious abandoned hero begins to stand up, staring at Doji with a surprised expression. He grabs his glowing pickaxe and asks if the protagonist was sent by the kingdom to capture him. Doji calmly replies that, even though he works like a slave, he has nothing to do with the royals. With a smirk, he reaffirms his stance, making it clear he has zero connection to the kingdom. The man grips his weapon tightly, saying everyone who goes there says the same thing at first. His eyes glow with an intimidating green light, and he finishes his sentence, saying they deny it until they get beaten up. Looking at Doji, he comments that hiding like that only proves his paranoia is through the roof. With a powerful attack, the abandoned hero charges forward, and the two forces clash in a massive energy explosion. Doji smiles with a mocking look, asking his opponent if he has checked everywhere already. The impact of the previous clash kicks up a cloud of dust, and the abandoned hero coughs, feeling the force of the blow. The protagonist asks if the hero thought he sat around doing nothing for a month while not streaming. He walks toward his opponent, saying he is in a hurry and that it is better to just reveal the secret already. With his eyes glowing green, the hero says he understands the situation and warns that Doji has crossed the line. He then slams his pickaxe into the ground, saying he has no choice but to fight with all his strength. The pickaxe transforms into a staff, and he reveals himself as the sacred healer hero, ready for judgment. A green health bar appears over the hero, and Doji realizes this is the second phase of the battle. He questions if his opponent is really a healer, and understands why he looked weak for someone with a hero title. Doji apologizes but says he is in too much of a hurry to waste time, and the scene then shifts to a flashback. In his first broadcast, a young Doji greets the camera awkwardly, not knowing what to say. A comment pops up in the chat, and a nostalgic person recognizes him from the damaged season, sparking up the conversation. Surprised, the young streamer can't hide his shock, wondering how anyone could possibly know him. Another viewer asks if he is the wet towel who threw a perfect game in the President's Cup. With wide eyes, he confirms it, unable to believe someone still remembered that achievement from his past. The fan says they will watch all of his streams, asking him to keep up the good work on the channel. The message ends with a promise that the viewer will cheer for him until the end, just like they did in the past. Back in the cave, the memory of that support fills him with determination, and he screams that he needs to stream. The scene flashes back to the past, on a baseball field where someone calls him by his real name, Do G. Tired and sweating, a young Do G replies to his coach, who had been watching him from afar while he practiced. The coach scolds him for not resting, and he explains he was just practicing pitches with a towel. The man praises him for the effort, but advises him to be careful not to end up ruining his body by overdoing it. He touches Do G's shoulder, saying that although he looks fine on the outside, overtraining is dangerous. He then questions the young man's training method, asking why he still uses a towel nowadays. The youth replies that it's an old habit he picked up from reading comic books and apologizes for causing concern. But the coach points out the completely worn-out towel, proving he had been training much more than he admitted. With a smile, he jokes that Do G is probably the only player with the nickname, Wet Towel. He says the young man needs to stop overdoing it if he wants even a chance to get in as a backup pitcher. Patting his head, the coach reveals that he will be the starting pitcher in that week's game. Do G is totally shocked and speechless, unable to believe the huge news he just received. The coach smiles, saying he doesn't make a habit of teasing hardworking kids, and tells him to practice with a real ball. He advises him not to overdo it in his first game, and to go in with the mindset that he will get beat up and learn. Do G bows in gratitude, promising he will pitch until his body can't take it anymore from exhaustion. The man jokes, saying he'll get fired if that happens, and asks him to just do what he usually does. From a distance, a girl watches the scene and thinks the interaction between the two is cool, calling Do G by his nickname. The scene cuts to the same girl in the present day, who sighs in boredom, saying she doesn't have much to do. She lies down on her desk, thinking she is in a dull phase of life and doesn't even have a hobby. Looking out the window, she reflects that she just wants to lay around scrolling on her phone and that she has never really liked anyone. She expected the days to keep passing like that, but something suddenly catches her attention and surprises her. The mysterious girl remembers a day when her father asked her to go with him to the company. She walks beside him, remembering that the so-called company was close to school, but she didn't even want to go there. The young woman mentions that her father had just gotten back from work and went out again, leaving the playground completely empty. With her eyes wide, she realizes there wasn't a single person at the place. Actually, there was one exception, because in the distance she could see Jai practicing pitches all by himself. Seeing that, the girl immediately understood that he was the person her father always talked about, and that the scene looked like a comic book. Her father, who was the team's coach, comments that this was the boy's 219th day of practice. He explains that 219 days ago the young man was an unknown player, but now he was the starting pitcher. The coach tells his daughter he isn't showing her that so she compare herself to the boy or live like him. He just wanted to show what a person looks like when they find something they truly love and then lets her go. Watching Ji through the fence, the girl thinks it was the first time she had seen something like that. To her, it was as if she were looking at a very strange and unique person. She thinks about his nickname, Wet Towel, and even though she finds it kind of weird, she also considers it really cool. The scene returns to the future, with the girl rushing out of the house, saying she was running late for something. She was curious to see how that strange player, with comic book training methods, would do on the field. Arriving at the stadium, she sees him getting ready to pitch and feels conflicted, not knowing whether to cheer for him or not. Even though his training seemed like nonsense, his pitch was incredibly powerful. Ji pitched so well that the opposing batter didn't stand a chance of hitting the ball. Seeing his excitement and that of his teammates, the girl says that, without realizing it, she started cheering for him until the end. In the middle of the crowd, she is amazed by what she saw and says that, for the first time in her life, she found something she liked. From that moment on, she felt she needed to change and started doing so little by little. The first change was to start dedicating herself and studying harder in school. She even tried playing sports she had never done before, like playing baseball with her dad. With a lot of effort, she dedicated herself to finding something she liked, inspired by Ji's image. And just when she finally found something that motivated her and made her happy, the person who had given her hope and inspiration suffered a serious accident, as shown by a broken bat on the ground. Ji fell on the field, holding his shoulder with an expression of immense pain. The girl, who was watching everything from the stands, was in complete shock and didn't know how to react. She narrates that, from that day on, their situations ended up completely reversing. Now in the present day, she feels she owes him a debt and that she needs to pay back what he did for her. Over time, she heard news about him through her father, who talked about the boy playing a lot of video games. When she heard he wanted to do live streams, her heart raced and she ran to her room. Not knowing how to find him, she searched the internet for the first thing that came to mind, his nickname, Wet Towel. Upon managing to find him and returning the favor by helping out on his stream, she felt a little emotional. With her hands over her mouth, the young woman watches the stream with a look of relief and happiness. She said encouraging messages, pretending she didn't know anything about his past. Wet Towel kept doing the lives, and thanks to that, the two got closer and even made a promise. To this day, in order to keep the promise he made to her, Ji refuses to stop doing his broadcasts. Because of that, the streams became very important to the girl, who is now worried about what is happening. She wants to keep that promise more than anyone else, but fears he might not be able to do live streams anymore. Meanwhile, the mysterious girl comments that the streamer challenge seems intense and wonders if he will make it back in time. Somewhere else, someone's feet land on the ground while a voice claims there are still many warriors alive. A man wearing a headband glares at Doji and warns that if he has nothing to say, it is better to accept his sad end. Without wasting time, the adversary charges quickly toward the protagonist, leaving a trail of dust behind. With his eyes glowing green, the man raises a pickaxe and shouts that he urgently needs to tell a kingdom's secret. His weapon emits bright sparks while the voice reveals that the mystery lies behind the monsters of the Kwang's continent. In a moment of dramatic tension, the warrior shouts loudly that the kingdom itself is involved in this whole situation. Beside his pink octopus, the young man listens to the revelation with a calm smile and comments that he finds it all fun. The headband man finds the lack of reaction strange and warns that by knowing the secret, the boy will never be able to go home again. Unbothered, Doji tells his pet that they can just hunt right there, and that it is not a big deal. The pink octopus starts sweating nervously and warns its owner that it is sensing something very bad in the air. At that moment, the protagonist's eyes widen in shock as he remembers the urgency of his streamer challenge. The scene replays the moment the enemy warns that the boy will not be able to return to the previous continent because he knows too much. Repeating his relaxed attitude, the young man casually tells his minion that they can keep hunting without major worries. The little companion widens its eyes again and warns that taking a break at that specific moment seems very sinister. Once again, Doji goes into total panic upon realizing his live broadcast might be at risk because of the delay. Faced with this, the headband man fiercely charges and repeats that the boy will never be able to return to the continent again. The warrior fires a massive yellow energy dragon and decrees that the kingdom's dog will meet its end right there. Calmly, the protagonist raises his hand and casually says there is no problem as long as the path is not blocked. With just one hand, he blocks the brutal impact of the flaming energy that was about to hit him dead on. Facing the attack, Doji warns that he will return even if he has to destroy that entire continent to get what he wants. The opponent falls to his knees as he watches his devastating strike being completely dissipated by the boy's strength. Shocked by the situation, the warrior wonders how the youth blocked the attack and notes that no one has ever done that before. As the dust settles, he praises the young man's skills even though he knows the boy is a mere lackey of the kingdom. Completely defeated, the man drops to his knees on the dirt floor and lowers his head in a dramatic posture. A dark silhouette of the warrior murmurs that the kingdom's leaders must be planning something terrible once again. Striking a pose with birds flying around, he warns that they must alert the true heroes as fast as possible. The man raises his head with an exaggerated expression and announces to the wind that a grand event is approaching. Shortly after, he simply passes out and falls face first onto the ground right in front of Doji and his pet octopus. The young man analyzes the scene without understanding and comments that an outsider would think he is the real villain of the story. Staring at the fallen body, the boy says it's impossible for the enemy to be defeated in one hit after talking about a second phase. To test his theory, he kicks the fallen warrior a few times and orders the man to get up immediately. The guy's face twitches slightly, revealing that he is actually quite conscious despite pretending to have passed out. With a scary look, Doji says he saw his opponent smiling and confirms it was all an act, frightening the man. The warrior finally sits up laughing and asks how the youth knew about the act, although he admits the attack did hurt. Pointing his finger, the protagonist tells him to stop lying because his health bar is full and he is no idiot. The man praises the boy's perception and explains that his skill heals allies while dealing damage to enemies. Very impatient, Doji warns he doesn't fall for those tricks and asks him to just finish the quest once and for all. The healer smiles while nodding and officially acknowledges all of the young man's great combat skills. A system window pops up confirming he has received the recognition of a secret hero and cleared the test phase. Right after the battle ends, system notifications announce that Doji gained a clue about the kingdom's great secret. The headband man comments that the greedy king sent the boy to find them and warns of the dangers of returning now. The disguised hero explains that if the youth returns, he will reveal their hiding spot and end up eliminated for knowing too much. With a very tense face, the healer claims that anyone who knows the mystery is marked for elimination by the king. Showing little interest in the tragic story, the protagonist asks if the doomed heroes can attack first. The man sighs, mourning the lack of warriors, but ends up being interrupted as a mysterious hand approaches. Suddenly, the ally's eyes go wide in pain and he suffers a brutal surprise attack from behind in a swift strike. A sinister voice comments that he was talking way too much while the attacker firmly holds the weapon used in the strike. The young man widens his eyes in shock and tries to understand how he didn't sense the presence of absolutely anyone approaching. A hooded female assassin with glowing eyes appears behind the fallen warrior and says his exile was well-deserved. Without wasting time, she delivers a violent kick while asking if the boy also listened to that forbidden conversation. Sliding behind the young man's back, the woman comments that it is a great shame to have to deal with him at that exact moment. Far away, back on the main continent, a silver-haired girl walks carrying a beautiful magic staff. The young woman looks at a massive coliseum-like building where dozens of players gather with high expectations. In the packed crowd, the player holding the #1 spot in the global class level rankings can be spotted. Another famous competitor present at the venue is a red-haired man known for having the best valuable items in the entire game. Players comment in surprise about the presence of the moment's biggest guide creator and even veteran warriors. Annoyed by the situation around her, the platinum-haired mage grumbles that only one single person hasn't arrived yet. She frowns and remembers that the boy started a very quick live stream and abruptly turned it off out of nowhere. Very worried about his sudden disappearance, the young woman tries to guess what on earth could have happened to delay her partner. Nearby, another green-haired competitor also waits anxiously in the square holding a long staff. The platinum-haired girl spots the presence of her rival known as Foxfire and thinks about the danger of interacting or recording with her. Since they make very similar guide videos, she prefers to turn her back to avoid any trouble with her audience. Foxfire, in turn, flashes a confident smile and wonders if she will finally need to take the reins of that situation. A voice echoes through the place officially announcing the opening of the much-anticipated registrations for the Grand Creators Tournament. Quickly, the massive crowd of people begins to organize in order to enter the main area of the incredible battle arena. Biting her nails from nerves, Foxfire can't hide her tension and finds it strange that the protagonist hasn't arrived. Tired of waiting in vain, the girl mentally throws it all to the wind and decides to just run and register right away. Meanwhile, the armored veteran warrior angrily reflects on the special invitation rules for the current tournament. With a face red with hate, he concludes the company deemed him a failure and didn't even send him an official invite. The man recalls seeing a brief glimpse of the invite appear momentarily during a video by the boy Wet Towel. Trembling with pure fury, the veteran promises to gather everyone who hates the young content creator to eliminate him quickly. The blonde armored man watches the platinum-haired mage nearby and remembers that she got rejected for a collaboration with the kid. Flashing a dark smile, he plans to approach the young woman to use her devoted fans to his advantage in the mess. Determined to follow through with his plan, he carefully steps closer and gently taps the shoulder of the silver-haired girl. Before he says anything, a giant pillar of blue light appears in the middle of the courtyard projecting official messages from the organization. From inside the bright digital energy, a floating admin appears and introduces himself as the competition's manager. With a friendly smile, the bespectacled coordinator announces he will go over the details of this year's grand prize. He explains that the main prize was designed to be valuable and perfect for boosting the channels of the big winners. Pointing excitedly at a shiny gold plaque, the admin reveals that the victors will be able to create their own kingdoms. The crowd reacts excitedly to the game manager, and players wonder if they will be able to collect taxes and live like true kings. The platinum-haired mage smiles very enthusiastically upon realizing this unprecedented reward will yield perfect material for her videos. Right behind her, the veteran warrior despairs and mutters in total frustration that this new development just ruined his plans. Completely tense about the situation, the blonde man tries to figure out what the use of distributing a kingdom permit would be. The manager explains that the item will trigger exclusive quests where the winner will gain all profits and uncover kingdom secrets. Some players comment that the reward seems unbalanced and suspect the prize is just bait from the company. Another group excitedly debates the chance to rule and questions whether the game season will end after a kingdom is created. Adjusting his glasses with a smile, the manager warns that the team also prepared a very special prize for the grand champion. Pointing to a large white tent, he announces that registrations will stay open for only 30 more running minutes. The green-haired mage goes into a full panic upon noticing that the time to check in is running out fast. Completely desperate, the young woman opens the game panel and sends a private message directly asking about the boy's whereabouts. She presses the virtual button quite aggressively while muttering curses over having to take such an embarrassing step. To her utter misfortune, a red system warning informs her that the player is currently unavailable for private conversations. With her face covered in shadows, the content creator stares into the void and dramatically realizes she is completely doomed.